Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and this is the Mike Graham Show. It's 7 o'clock and we are here. It is Tuesday, the 24th of March. And where's March gone, by the way? 3 weeks have gone and next week is going to be the 1st of April. But don't worry, because the good news is on the 1st of April, you will immediately see a saving of £150 in your heating bills. And if you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you. We are here in the company of Mark Littlewood. Mark, very good morning to you. Nice
morning,
to
Mike.
see you this early in the morning from Popular Conservatism. A lot more popular than Keir Starmer is, I have to say that. And we've got lots and lots of headlines to get you through, most of which seem to involve President Donald Trump. The Mail goes with Trump blinks first. Trump would bet on a deal with Iran, says the Times. Trump to run the Straits of Hormuz with Iran, according to the Telegraph. World crisis is not over, according to the Daily Mirror. And Trump touts an end to diplomatic war in the Financial Times. The thing I find extraordinary, Mark, about this story that's happened overnight, where Trump has apparently agreed to do some kind of negotiation and some kind of settlement to get the Straits of Hormuz open again, is every single commentator and every single newspaper and radio station that I've been listening to and reading this morning seems to think that Trump's the one that's lying.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the Iranians never tell lies.
No, exactly.
I mean, the paragons of virtue.
This seems to be exactly where the British media have got to.
Yeah.
That, Trump, look, Trump sometimes, can be a little bombastic and, stretch things a little. But if Trump is saying X and the Ayatollah is saying Y, I think I'd lean into believing Trump.
I think I would. I mean, let's not forget, it was only, 3 days ago when we were told that the ballistic missile prowess of Iran was no more than 2,000 kilometres. And then suddenly they land one over towards Diego Garcia, which is 4,000 kilometres. Yeah. And everyone went, oh, they told us they didn't have any of those.
Yeah, well,
people seem to have forgotten that was the last time they told a lie.
Yes, well, and, you'd expect them to, wouldn't you? You'd expect them to. So I don't know. Will this? I know you're running the poll on it, but
we are running a poll on it, which says this: who would you rather be in charge of the Straits of Hormuz, the Ayatollah, Keir Starmer, Peter Mandelson, or Tony Blair? Some people are saying it's a mad poll. It's a poll, right? It's asking for your opinion. If you don't wish to vote in it, you don't have to. But it's made up by our massive poll department here. They go through a series of measures before they ever put a poll out. Yeah. They test it, they stress test it, they make sure, like all good pollsters, that it's going to be something which will stimulate the comments on the
and
chat.
You can reassure viewers.
And of course, it has stimulated the comments on the chat.
You can reassure viewers and listeners, can't you, Mike, that the winner of the poll won't necessarily be given the Straits of Hormuz at the end of the programme.
Exactly right. Yeah, we're not actually going to say, well, if the Ayatollah's won it, then you can be in charge. I mean, Donald Trump is actually saying that he will share ownership and the sort of administration, if you like, of the Straits of Hormuz with the Ayatollah. The poll makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't quite know how that joint sovereignty can work, but I guess if you can have an alliance between President Trump and the Ayatollah, maybe an alliance between Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage is possible after all at some point.
Absolutely right. And that's the other thing as well, isn't it interesting? I imagine that Trump's been sort of drawn to want to administrate the Straits of Hormuz when he saw that you can charge £1.5 million to every tanker going through it. Yeah. He probably wants a piece of that.
He's worked out it is way better than any toll road in America.
Yeah. I mean, forget about I-95. As you go past Newark Airport, this is
the ultimate toll road.
This is where the money is. And people will say we shouldn't be making fun of this story, but quite frankly, it's now reached kind of ridiculous proportions. The oil markets came back a bit yesterday as soon as Trump said that he wasn't going to administer, the mother of all beatings on Iranian infrastructure because, in fact, he pulled the deadline, which was 11:45 last night, London time. So generally speaking, the markets, I think, have recovered a little bit, which will be good news for an awful lot of people in the Western world who have got pensions apart from anything else, because I've given up looking at my pension as of about a week ago. But, I mean, I suppose the question is it possible for them to find some kind of settlement? If Trump is serious about it, then perhaps that's the only way it's going to end.
That might be right. And look, I'm in the vast majority of people who want there to be regime change in Iran. Yeah. But it looks damn difficult to bring that about.
I'd quite like regime change in Britain.
Yes, that would be. Yes, I agree. Sort of, similarly high level of priority. And similar proportion of press releases from the government that you can't believe are true.
Exactly.
So I hope there's regime change. But I mean, if not, would we consider what's happened some form of success? I mean, we've at least, we've done nothing. The Americans and the Israelis have at least enormously degraded Iran's capacity.
There's a piece in one of the papers today saying that they may be down to their last 1,000 missiles in Iran.
Right, and what about their nuclear program? We'd probably put that back 2 or 3 decades.
I would think so.
So even if everything stopped now and the Americans just walked away, you might say, okay, well, we haven't managed to convert Iran into a wonderful capitalist democracy, but at least we've made sure they're not going to get nukes for a generation or two. That would be some form of win. But with Trump, right, you never know with him, do you? Because he keeps you guessing. You never know what he's going to do or say next. It's like, sometimes the best sportsmen and footballers are like that. They don't know what they're going to do next. So the opponents don't know what they're going to do next.
And also, if his end game is to get some kind of, peace in the Middle East and a safeguarding of Israel, safeguarding of the other Gulf states who don't wish to have missiles being fired upon them all the time, if this is the best way to do it, he'll get there by whichever means he can, won't he?
I think that's probably right. I mean, as I say, the problem with all of these wars, isn't it, is that you kind of always quite like how the movie starts, but it's very difficult to see how the movie ends.
Yes.
So
greatly, you've got to wait around for the sequel.
And you've got to write there. It's bound to be it's the Middle East. There'll be a sequel coming along any moment.
Well, a lot of people at the beginning of this war, and I still kind of struggle to call it a war because it's not really like a war in the sense of a traditional kind of war, is it? It's a sort of, it's almost like a sort of a war of attrition.
Yeah, and there's not much, there's no infantrymen involved.
And there's no front line.
Yeah, there's
really.
That's right.
So I think in the traditional sense, it's hard to think of it as a war. However, people have said this has got all the feelings to it of the first Iraq war, where, some kind of deal was done, but it wasn't really done properly. And so they had to go back. And this time they had to go in.
Yes.
And of course, I've been speaking to my friends in America, as I'm sure you have. There's nobody in America that wants boots on the ground anywhere near Iran.
And the argument goes, doesn't it, that in most cases, in nearly all cases, if you want regime change, it tends to involve boots on the ground. I mean, I think the only counter case to that is Japan at the end of the Second World War, but that involved nukes on the ground, right? So you may not want to go there. So look, a lot of it, which is also hugely unpredictable, is what's the potential of an uprising amongst the Iranian civilians? And even if there was an appetite to do that, are they equipped to overthrow the regime? So look, who knows? But let's hope it comes to an end. But the impact of this, certainly in the short term, probably in the medium term, is going to be pretty grim. I mean, we're seeing petrol prices perhaps stabilising now, but they've shot up.
Yes.
And the knock-on effects of this to any economy are substantial because,
of course, anything from this point on, I mean, funnily enough, bought some petrol yesterday and it was 150.9 per litre. And the knock-on effect of that will be felt for the next couple of months, presumably in transportation costs, food prices, energy prices still going up. I see no sign of I know that it wouldn't work this quickly anyway, but if the oil price dropped yesterday, it hasn't dropped at the petrol station, and the government is still making an awful lot of money out of it.
Yeah, that's true. Overall, however, for dear old Rachel Reeves, this is going to be bad news. Inflation will tick up as a consequence of this. That means that interest rates are unlikely to fall because interest rates remaining a little higher is a good way of combating inflation. And despite the fact that they're clawing in money in fuel duty because the price has gone up, the knock-on effect on the wider economy is probably going to mean their tax receipts overall are lower. So this beloved fiscal headroom that they pretend they've got, if they had any of it, it's probably disappeared.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Rachel, there were stories over the weekend which haven't come true yet, but probably will eventually. There was some kind of reshuffle in the offing that Rachel Reeves might be on the way out. And so might Wes Streeting. So we'll see whether or not Keir Starmer recovers himself enough to do that. Lots of pictures coming. 171.9 in Aberdeenshire, says Alan. Blimey, that's a lot. Is that just for ordinary unleaded? That's like 20p more than it is in London, which is pretty expensive. That's extraordinary. Lots of people complaining still about the poll. So let's do a poll update, because I think we need to do that, because lots of people are actually voting on it. As Mark said earlier, you must remember that despite the fact that the poll is doing well on our site here, who would you rather be in charge of the Straits of Hormuz? The Ayatollah's winning at the moment, as we thought he would, 52%. Keir Starmer, 10%. Mandelson, 10%. Blair, 28%. Amazing number of people would think that Tony Blair should be in charge of it. Anyway, keep those votes coming in. At the end of it, we don't mean to, to sort of hand the Straits of Hormuz to anybody in particular. as Mark pointed out. But let's have a look at what happened yesterday in Parliament, because Keir Starmer had to appear before a select committee to talk about many things, including his status on the international situation and the international law, and why he keeps changing his mind about what it is that British foreign policy is. Now, this is a guy, let's not forget, who is said to be a top lawyer. He's a man that knows everything there is to know about international law. In fact, international law is his watchword. Have a look at him trying to explain what the law is that tells him that he should now change the rules on what Britain does vis-à-vis defence or attack.
The things to do at the beginning.
And I just wanted to pick up on a point in response to Mr. Slaughter. You were talking about the legal basis for action in Iran, and you were very clear in the original position. On Friday, though, you gave permission for the US to use the UK bases to target Iranian forces that are, in effect, keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed. Can you just be clear which states under international law are being defended through that action? Is it as clear a legal position as you were outlining?
Well, it's predominantly our allies in the region, and the legal basis is the same.
Which particular states?
Well,
name some.
All of those in the region that we are not just allowing US bases to be used to defend, of our bases to be used, but also we've got our own capability and assets in the sky there. But the legal, I mean, if you step back from this, we had already said, for the purposes of the defence, collective self-defence of our allies, and in fact our people who are in the region, we will allow.
I think we're very clear about that original position.
Just to explain the legal bit, we will allow the US to strike Iran's capability to send missiles, essentially to land, to infrastructure, hotels, bases. What Friday did was to extend that to vessels in the region, and because the illogicality of strikes that hit hotels and then you've got vessels in the water nearby that needed to be protected under the same legal framework, exactly the same legal framework. So actually that was an extension of the original decision as the targets of Iran have changed. So the set of targets that we've authorised the basis to be used for has changed accordingly, but the legal basis is precisely the same as the original legal basis, and the logic actually is precisely the same as well.
Can you imagine any other leader of the world talking about a military situation in those terms?
Trying to get away with just putting forward complete word salad. So, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I could have explained it better than that, which is the Americans can use these facilities as long as the actions emanating from them are to defend countries A, B, C, D, and E, or our
but except by their
somewhere.
nature, using the British bases to launch planes which have got bombs on them, that is by definition an attack force.
Yeah, quite.
It's not a defensive force. A defensive force would be, remember the Patriot missile batteries that they used to have in the Gulf War?
Yeah.
You know, that's defensive, right? So you're sitting on your home territory, shooting down missiles that are coming at you, shooting at planes that are trying to bomb you. That's defensive.
Correct.
Dropping bombs on people isn't defensive.
Yeah.
I don't care which way you look at it.
I think that's right. And I saw some IDF statement as well recently saying that the Israelis were now going to take a forward enhanced defensive posture. Well, that's an offensive posture, right? So this idea that you can chop logic between an enterprise which is entirely defensive and an enterprise which is offensive, complete garbage. And look, he was tied up in knots.
But this is the problem with lawyers, right?
Yeah.
Because lawyers cannot actually define anything because they're too frightened to define it, in which case they put themselves inside a framework outside of which they cannot then operate. And somebody else pointed out something interesting, that whenever Starmer's lying and whenever, well, I mean, his lips are moving basically, but whenever he's struggling, he starts doing this with his right hand. Yeah. And he does start, and he kept doing that when he was explaining the
psychologists would say that's you kind of cover your mouth and your face if you're
It's a little defensive stroke, not offensive. It's difficult to know. The next clip we're going to show you, in fact, we're working on a I know that so many of you hate listening to Starmer. We're working on a trigger warning for you, so when we play anything by him, you'll know it's coming. But have a look at this. This is the real Keir Starmer, right? This is what he's actually like. This is when he gets quizzed by Bernard Jenkin in the same select committee in Parliament about why we were not ready militarily for this particular action.
The Chiefs of Staff are saying we need to be ready for war. So when are we going to be prepared, and prepared for what?
We are finalising the investment plan. That sits with the Strategic Defence Review.
Smacks of an enormous complacency.
Well, this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government and the stripping out and following out of our armed
had 18
forces.
months
Copyright
to
Ben
deal with
Wallace, who was the Defence
I'm not
Secretary.
making a fuss.
Where is he fit?
Honestly,
I agree with Ben
14
Wallace.
years of
last one,
underinvestment,
Mr.
I agree with
18
Ben
months for a
Wallace.
Labour government.
But take
We're
drones, for
picking-
example.
We're picking
The whole-
up the underinvestment of your
Okay.
government.
I mean, how petulant and pathetic and ridiculous for a man who's supposed to be in charge of a country, for a man who's meant to be thick-skinned as a politician and has been leader of the Labour Party for quite some time. And he's literally having a hissy fit.
Don't you think he recognised almost instantaneously that his initial answer was completely pathetic?
Was absolutely
So Bernard Jenkins, the chairman of the committee,
Yeah.
says to him, right, okay, so when are we going to be ready for war?
Right.
And he goes straight into process points.
Yes.
Oh, well, the good news is I've got a committee looking at that very question.
And the committee's working with the working party.
And it's sitting with the committee.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
And the
so
working
it's sitting,
party,
it's not moving along.
And the working party are looking at the budget.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, somebody's just shot you dead
Yeah.
with a gun from over there.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
process is being followed.
Process.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happened with Mandelson, wasn't it? The process was followed.
It's
It
all
turns
about
out
process.
The process wasn't any good.
Yeah.
So now they're going to change the process. But meanwhile, Mandelson is busy, importing supposedly drugs, exporting secret files to a known paedophile from government sources.
But this is the whole way that Starmer thinks. Everything is about the process. The outcome is neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So he's not that bothered about whether we're ready for war or not.
Yeah.
He's just extremely bothered that the right committee is looking at the right proposals at the right time. And to use his words, those proposals are sitting with them.
Yes.
Well, that hardly suggests the great sort of leap forward or alacrity that we need to properly defend ourselves.
Well, all
does
I
it?
could think of when I watched those two clips yesterday was a combination of Margaret Thatcher and Winston Churchill, and just imagining them sitting in that same kind of committee room, answering questions about an offensive action either in the Falklands or in Normandy. And you can't imagine them saying any of those words, can you?
We've got a working committee looking into it. Can you imagine them saying that?
I mean, and Manfred Kerner said toys out of the pram. Totally true. And it shows you that he's a man on the edge as well, because he knows that he has no authority. Tosser, which is fair enough. Thank you, John, for that. But he's a man who clearly has no authority over his own party. He has no say. I mean, he actually said, we are allowing the Americans to, they're not allowing the Americans to do it. He's been told to do it by Trump, and he's now doing it. He's got no sort of in with Trump. Again, they say they've been talking to the president, but they just don't really have a seat at the table anymore.
And
because
I think
why would they?
Yeah, and the other, you can now tell. I mean, obviously his entire political career hangs by a thread. I mean, presumably,
well, it's over, isn't it? Really?
Presumably, the Labour Party will get rid of him in relatively short order. But my God, how utterly thin-skinned is he? I mean, that's the difference between a statesman and a prime minister.
Yes.
A statesman is not thin-skinned and will take a criticism and rebuff it or rebut it or explain what's being done.
Be a bit clever answering it.
Yeah, whereas he seems to be mortally offended.
Yeah.
If anybody actually asks him a reasonable question.
Yes.
Mortally offended, gets highly irritable.
And we've seen it, haven't we, in Parliament as well?
Totally.
The Prime Minister's questions, when he gets
Exactly
asked a
like
question. Do you remember when the Plaid Cymru woman got up and said something? And he made some really disparaging remark about her brains. So he's clearly one of these guys who can't take it. He cannot take any kind of criticism, which is a sure sign of a narcissist and a man who is completely and utterly out of his depth.
I would completely agree. That's becoming more apparent every day. It just needs to become completely apparent to Labour backbenchers, and then they'll throw him overboard, won't they?
Well, you would like to think so. The other ridiculousness of yesterday, of course, was the following up of the arson attack that took place at Golders Green. 4 ambulances from a Jewish charity blown up by what is now being described as an Iranian gang. Apparently some group has claimed responsibility, which the police have said they haven't yet managed to actually pin down. But they're now they're still not calling it a terrorist event. They're calling it a hate crime. Right? Wes Streeting turned up. Keir Starmer didn't turn up, I don't think. Sadiq Khan certainly didn't turn up. But again, this whole kind of hypocrisy of all of these lefty Labour politicians and activists sort of saying, well, this is terrible, isn't it? Absolutely awful. Zach Polanski, no place in this world for anti-Semitism. Well, yeah, except you've been practicing it for the best part of the last year. So why are you surprised?
Well, and for the Green Party, they're thinking on their conference of saying Zionism is racism. Absolutely extraordinary. Look, the other thing here is if this group, which is then associated to the Iranian IRGC,
Yes.
that's the Revolutionary Guard,
Yeah, this organisation is called Harak Ashab al-Yamin.
and there's some offshoot or supported by IRGC, aren't
Yeah.
they? Which,
Yeah.
and we have not even yet designated the IRGC
No.
as a terrorist group.
No, and why? Because the lawyers say basically we can't because it's run by the state.
Yeah, but the European Union has, right? So if a group,
So is the USA.
but take the European Union, lily-livered lefties,
Yeah.
even they have decided to
Yeah.
go down the route of calling these guys a terrorist group and
Yeah.
with the prescriptions that apply. We apparently have not. To my mind, that's the acid test, right? If the intelligence from this is clear, that, and it seems to me pretty obviously a terrorist attack, right? I mean, ghastly, it's on a charity, on an ambulance, not some sort of military facility or anything like that, or even an obvious political target. But if the government doesn't now say, yeah, okay, on the basis of this new evidence, not that we should require any new evidence, the IRGC is a terrorist organisation. I don't care whether it's part of a state or not.
No.
Why? I mean,
No, but again, it's a legal nicety which has been sort of dreamed up
Correct.
by Lord Hermer and people like him
Yeah.
who say, well, we can hide behind this. Because
Exactly.
again, it's all about, as I always say, nothing to do with foreign policy, it's everything to do with not upsetting Muslims in Britain. That's what it's about.
well, that has to end, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, we have made life increasingly intolerable for the Jewish community. We have afforded them no reasonable protection.
Yeah.
We have not prescribed clearly terrorist organisations as terrorist. I mean, I don't want to go so far as say it's unsurprising that something like this has happened, but I guess it is unsurprising even if it is shocking.
Yeah.
And all we're getting at the moment is expressions of regret.
Yeah.
Well, all right, fine, but what is the accompanying action to that? And the answer appears to be nothing,
Right.
because Hermer.
Well, let's see whether there's a pro-Iranian demonstration at the weekend in London. I would
Quite.
bet you a pound to a penny.
Yep.
There will be, and it won't be stopped.
Yep.
You know, they stopped the last one, except they only stopped them from marching. But they didn't stop them from assembling, and they didn't
Correct.
stop them from shouting death to Israel, death to America, and probably death to Golders Green.
And they didn't nick very many of them either.
No. No. Absolutely. Melanie says he's probably still upset Arsenal lost the final, which he was probably attending. Yeah, he might be. He might well be upset about that. But the point is he's upset about everything, Starmer, because you never see him smiling anymore. You know,
No.
He's got nothing to smile about, mind you, and I'm quite happy about that. But, you know, the guy is obviously losing it. He's obviously miserable as hell. And if he had any kind of self-esteem whatsoever, he would just resign.
Yes, and that, I mean, it's intriguing, isn't it, when you see what we assume to be the final days, the final weeks, the final hours of a political career. He has got that dead man walking look on his face and that intonation in his voice. And I just think if I was in his position, I would sort of choose the time of my own political death rather than leave it to others.
Absolutely.
That would be, you could exit with something approaching some degree of good grace. If you actually said, look, I've thought long and hard about this and I've decided after the elections in May will be an appropriate time for me to step aside for someone else. And you would leave with some degree of grace.
Because also,
at that
how
point.
about a little bit of honesty as well, which I know we'll never get from Starmer, but a little bit of honesty to say, look, you know, unfortunately, this job has proven to be much more difficult than I thought it was going to be, and frankly, I'm just not up to it, and I can't, in all conscience, continue. But instead of that, he turns up and says things like, I was elected to change Britain.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to stay in post until that happens. Well, no, you weren't actually. You were elected because you weren't a Tory. You were elected because you were from a different party and you happened to be the leader of the Labour Party.
So I've always had a theory, Mike, when I've conducted job interviews and I've been the employer many more times than I've been the employee. You can always tell the failing candidates are those who fall back on word salad. And the good candidates are those who give a direct answer, even if it's a controversial one. And he now continually falls back on verbiage and word salad. You cannot get a direct answer from him at all.
No.
And that is the sign of a failing candidate who's not up to any job.
Only last Wednesday, at Prime Minister's Question, 6 times he was asked, did you speak to Lord Mandelson before you appointed him as ambassador, knowing what you knew about his friendship with Epstein? And he didn't answer the question. He never answered it.
I've been banging the drum about this a bit, that it seemed to me that this was still PMQ's, Prime Minister's Questions, doing its job because it exposed Starmer as someone who couldn't answer a straightforward question.
Yeah.
But I've now reached the conclusion that the Speaker of the House of Commons is not doing his job.
He's not doing his job.
And you are in contempt of Parliament, in my view, if you are asked a straightforward, direct question where you clearly know the answer.
Yes.
That you're not trying to trip him up on some unbelievable technical detail in the bottom of
It's
some
a yes
government
or
doc.
no answer.
You know whether you've spoken to Peter Mandelson. Why will you not tell the House of
Yeah.
Commons the answer to that?
Right.
And I think Lindsay Hoyle's got to grow a pair
He does.
and actually say, I do not understand why the Prime Minister has not given a clear answer to the question asked by the Leader of the Opposition. Please now provide one.
Please answer yes or no.
Yeah.
And then he should ask the question and say, did you speak to him or
Correct.
not? It's really, really easy. A couple of other super chats have come in. Let me just go back to those, if I may. You can send those in any time you like. Something wickedly says, Keir needs a cuddle from Zelensky. Well, he had one the other day. Maybe that's why he's upset, because he left early. I don't know. One from Ian, who says it's salad, croutons and Thousand Island dressing. Is it? Word salad, okay. Starmer resigned. He actually thinks he's doing a good job, says Jane. I know, that's the tragedy. He really does.
And this with reference to the live show, Mike.
And Cindy says, Pooch, can you book Paul McCartney on the show? Actually, we can do better than that.
Yeah.
We can do Lewis MacLeod as Paul McCartney. He does a really good Paul McCartney, doesn't he? Yeah. But we'll bring you that, of course, on May the 6th, evening of. Let's have a look at a couple of other clips, though, because yesterday, you might not be surprised to know, Mark, that the media are up on their hind legs. All of them had things to say about the arson attack overnight in Golders Green on the ambulances. This is incredibly Ed Balls talking on Good Morning Britain. I still can't understand why he's doing that job, but that's another story. But have a look at this, right? You'll be amazed at his line of questioning.
And Dove, when you see last week the Shadow Justice Secretary Nick Timothy singling out the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for praying in Trafalgar Square in a Muslim group and saying that is wrong and shouldn't happen, isn't that the kind of intolerance and divisiveness which is causing problems in the Jewish community right now? Do you condemn that as well?
Well, look, I think that the Shadow Justice Secretary was going to a point which many people in this country feel about Islamist extremism. I won't get drawn into a debate on whether his words were right or wrong. We're here to talk about this anti-Semitic attack this morning on the Jewish community. But certainly, as you say, we need to be careful with our words. But as I say, there are people, including many in the Jewish community, who are worried about the spread of Islamist extremism that's running rampant across society. I'm a university student. Across my university, UCL, I see people every single day, not just mourning the death of the Ayatollahs and extremists and supporting terrorist groups, but actually radicalising others. And that is something which is worrying in public, and I think something that we do need to speak about, and we can't shy away from these discussions.
So Dov Foreman there, a student at UCL and a Jewish activist, talking about the dangers of the Islamification of Britain. Ed Balls thinks it's an appropriate question to ask, maybe they're justified in blowing up your ambulances because of what Nick Timothy said.
The chain of cause and effect in Ed Balls' mind is absolutely bizarre. Nick Timothy criticises Sadiq Khan, and the consequences, apparently, that provides an open door to anybody to blow up some Jewish ambulances. I mean, how on earth?
I know.
Even if you disagree with Nick Timothy's criticism, let's say you wholeheartedly disagree with it, what sort of person could possibly think that would provide any justification whatsoever to go and torch some ambulances?
Yeah. Well, do you know what sort of person? The producers at ITV, and because they'd have been feeding into his ear as well.
Well, I mean, it beggars belief, doesn't it? That because this is where we've got to, Mike, isn't it? That we can't apparently have a robust political debate about, for example, the impact of Islam on British society, for fear that people will then be offended and will then take these actions, which almost Ed Balls appeared to legitimise, to say that this is an inevitable consequence of Nick Timothy saying something on social media.
And also to kind of make out that almost Nick Timothy's words are worse than blowing up ambulances.
Quite.
Blowing up ambulances is understandable. Whereas
a criticism on Twitter of somebody outrageous.
I know.
I mean, absolutely got this the wrong way round. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
And they'll close down every part of public debate on this basis, that if somebody says something, which we can argue about the content of, right?
Yeah.
Do we agree with Nick Timothy? Do we think he was bang on? Do we think he went too far? But the idea that those sort of concepts shouldn't be put in the public domain because they lead to terrorism. The terrorism is the fault of the terrorists, not the fault of Nick Timothy.
Yes, absolutely right. A couple of other stories to run through before we let you go. HS2, it was announced yesterday, is going to now run slower than trains in places like Southeast Asia, Vietnam, in India, for example, other what you might call developing countries. I wonder if we're really now in need of renaming HS2 because it's not HS anymore.
No.
It's just S.
Yeah, well, there was not even much speed at all.
Slow
It's just two.
Yeah, 2 miles an hour.
I mean, I just wonder, is this potentially the most ludicrous infrastructure project of all time? So you mentioned the comparison with India. I can remember about 10, 15 years ago, the India space program spent, I think it was £100 million getting an unmanned probe to Mars.
Well, there were a load of people clinging onto the outside of it.
If you'd only bought a second-class ticket, you'll cling onto the outside.
Yeah. See how far you get.
So the Indians have managed to spend 100 million quid getting to Mars, whereas we in Britain are spending 100 billion quid getting to Birmingham.
Yes.
I mean, who's getting... It's this project absolutely crazy. It should... And look, the minute that no private money came forward to support this, not a single cent, dollar or dime came forward to support this, we should have known that the whole thing was a complete fiasco.
Yeah.
What an absolute waste of money.
It's a great sort of allegory for the state of the British public sector, isn't it? Because one, they went and bought a load of property and compulsorily purchased people, made them move house. Now they're trying to sell them back to them because they're not actually running a railway line up there anymore. They made the Bat Tunnel where millions and millions of pounds was wasted because they couldn't disturb the bats inside of a tunnel.
Spent £500,000 for each bat saved. £500,000 quid.
Incredible. And now they're talking about, originally they weren't going to run it into Euston, now they are going to run it into Euston. So it's effectively running parallel to the line they've already got. Which runs reasonably quickly already from Birmingham.
I would have thought, my impression, the London to Birmingham service is about the best one on the present railway system. So the idea that you would invest whatever money you've got on replicating that line at virtually no additional advantage. What an absolute fiasco.
I know. I don't know who's responsible for it, and no doubt we'll never find out now.
I reckon it should be bailed out by dipping into the Parliamentary pension fund to cover its losses.
I think so. Absolutely right. Shocking state of affairs. Meanwhile, Ed Miliband's back in the news. Saw in the Telegraph that he's basically being warned about gas imports. There's an organisation called, I think, the Offshore, UK Offshore or something like that, who are actually saying, I was listening to it on the way in, very commonsensically, well, if we actually drilled for our own oil and gas, we'd be a lot more secure with our own energy, and also we'd be able to contain the prices somewhat.
Well, and right at the top of the show, we saw a chat, didn't we, Mike, from somebody complaining about the cost of petrol in Aberdeenshire.
In Aberdeen,
you would have thought this should be the cheapest. We should be drilling just by there, and the transportation. It is ludicrous. We are leaving very valuable natural resources in the ground, not just petrol. I mean, how we haven't been able to bring fracking online in any size, shape or form is absolutely ludicrous, all to fulfill this mad fantasy, this economic unilateral disarmament of Ed Miliband's weird ideas about carbon net zero. It is a disaster for the economy.
But even now, he's still unconvinced, doesn't he? He remains absolutely, utterly wedded to this idea of net zero. He says that the reason why we need it even more now than ever is because of what's happening in the Middle East, because we can't be reliant on Middle East energy. Well, we don't need to be reliant on Middle East energy. We've got our own energy.
We've got our own, and we can access others. It is true that the cost of petrol will go up if you get a military situation involving petrol-producing countries or problems on the Straits of Hormuz. But all the more reason, I think, to exploit all the natural resources we have, which are substantial, and we are deliberately, maliciously, I would even say, because it is an entirely leftist ideological basis for it, leaving them in the ground and under the sea. Absolute madness.
Incredible. One for you as a football fan. I know you're looking forward to the World Cup, which is coming up later on in the summer. England's new World Cup kit is the most expensive ever It soared at nearly double the rate of inflation. A New England shirt, if you wish to buy one for this World Cup, will set you back £134.99.
That's
outrageous,
That
isn't it?
is absolutely bananas. My team in the Championship, I think the shirt's 50 or 60 quid, and I consider that to be on the highly expensive side.
Yeah.
These are usually pretty feeble pieces of fabric.
Right.
You know, these are not exquisitely made, tailored shirts.
No.
Absolute rip-off. And look, especially if we want to get kids interested in football, how many parents can afford to buy their nipper a shirt
the
of
kids
that
version,
sort of price?
The junior shirt is £114.99.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to buy
What
that?
if you've got
for their
3 kids?
Yeah.
You're going to spend 400 quid basically buying 3 shirts.
Complete rip-off. Don't bother buying it. Just wear a white shirt or buy a retro one.
Yeah, or just wear a Scotland shirt instead.
Yeah.
Which might be a bit cheaper.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably only a bit, I'm guessing.
I don't know. And finally, the Sun goes a different way from everybody else, as they often do. Barmy B bans Bob Monkhouse, which many of you will remember as a very, very funny man, very funny comedian. Some of you might be too young. But apparently, an episode of BBC's The Repair Shop was pulled after a TV production worker got offended by a sexist Bob Monkhouse gag.
Yeah.
And the gag is, I can still enjoy sex at 74. I live at 76, so it's no distance.
Yeah, can somebody explain to me what's sexist about that? It's a good joke.
I mean, it's quite funny, isn't it?
Bob Monkhouse is family entertainment,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing sexist or racist about anything, any joke I can ever recollect.
No, I know. This is a new low, is what it says.
Yeah, so the person who was offended should have been told to get lost.
Yeah,
absolutely
exactly
unbelievable.
Yeah. Here's some of his other jokes. With my wife, it was sex, sex, sex. Yes, 3 times in 35 years. I'm not saying my wife's a bad cook, but she uses a smoke alarm as a timer. Which is brilliant. My wife said, can my mother come down for the weekend? I said, why? And she said, she's been up on the roof for 2 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll have to gag this show now.
He was a legend.
He was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, listen, you need a laugh in these difficult days. Bob Monkhouse was brilliant, says LTL. By the way, I've had a couple of people coming in from Cambodia this morning, one from Brisbane, a couple of people over in America. There was a guy in, I think, Tennessee yesterday who got in touch. So do get in touch and do keep telling us where you are, because I've got behind me, as you can see, there. There.
Anyone in South America?
We're still looking for anyone in South America. So that Venezuela, so we're talking Brazil, Peru, Chile, Argentina, anywhere down that neck of the woods, because we've got a big gap. And also anywhere in Russia as well would be good. But do keep it coming. Mark Littlewood, thank you very much indeed for coming
Pleasure as always,
We'll
Mike.
see you again very soon, I'm sure. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Russell Quirk. Will Geddes is here as well to tell us the latest on the Morgan McSweeney phone situation. I've lost my phone. Really? Have you? Have you got it backed up? No, I haven't. No, you'll never see any of those WhatsApps ever again. Will tell us if that's even possible. Also, Lord Daniel Moylan later on. Donald MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod is going to tell us about how he got hacked. And Twitter haven't exactly been very helpful to him. Keep your messages coming in. We've actually got a few messages to read out from people who've got bumper stickers as well. And if you want a bumper sticker, time is running out, because the bumper stickers are running out. So should we give them the address? Send a size C5 stamped addressed envelope to fit an A5 bumper sticker. The Mike Graham Show, PO Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS. Coming up, let's get the news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Ed Hughes. The escalating conflict between the US, Israel and Iran dominates the headlines. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has told Parliament this is not our war, and Britain will not be dragged into it, while chairing a Cobra meeting on the potential impact on living costs and energy prices. The UK government says it supports defensive action, but insists there is no direct threat to Britain, despite reports of incidents near the Diego Garcia base. In London, counter-terror police are investigating a suspected anti-Semitic arson attack in which 4 ambulances belonging to the Jewish volunteer charity Hatzolah were set on fire in Golders Green. Prime Minister Starmer has described it as horrific, and the community has raised over £1 million in emergency funds. Other stories: concerns are growing over the economic fallout from the Middle East crisis, with unemployment already at a 5-year high, and ministers are facing questions about cybersecurity preparations amid heightened tensions. That's the main news from the UK this morning. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers.
You've got mail.
And you have got mail. We have got plenty of mail. By the way, just before we get to what we've got in the mailbox, a quick message for you, particularly on Substack. If you are on Substack, you will have seen at the weekend that we started Ask Mike, which is a brand new feature, which is where I answer the questions that you put to me. But I just want to remind everybody that you should not accept messages which are not from the official show account, okay? Because a couple of people have said to me that they've been engaged in conversations with somebody called Mike Graham, which isn't me, right? Because my account does not appear on there. Pauline thought she was talking to me, but these are scammers, right, who are impersonating me. I don't understand why they would. Why? I mean, who would want to be me? Well, I mean, you know. Anyway, so be very wary of anyone who claims to be Mike Graham on Substack, because it isn't me. We've got a team of people that run Substack, and it's all through the Mike Graham show account, as opposed to any personal account. So if you think you're talking to me on Substack, you're not. So don't give them any money, and certainly don't engage with them. A couple of things to mention to you. Got a lovely card here. This is from Cindy Smith in Pigeon, Michigan. Mike, you're the best at what you do. Thank you for teaching me things, the laughs, the joy, touching my life more than you know. It's very kind. Thank you very much indeed. A couple of other people have been in touch. I would firstly like to congratulate you on your show, says Paul in Hitchin. It's beyond brilliant. My wife seems to think that I'm losing my hearing. I completely disagree. Whilst I was in town on my way to the hearing test, I went into a local supermarket and found some herrings that you seem so partial to. Please feel free to share with Ziggy. Thank you very much indeed. Little panda picture here. Let's have a look. What does this one say? This is from Moira. Please could I have an extra bumper sticker to send to my brother in America? Loving the new show. Comedy, satire, informative guests. And you keep us up to date with all the everyday madness we are living through. I'm coming to the show in May. Looking forward to it. Great. We'll see you on May the 6th. Will Geddes will be there as well. Somebody's asked for 5 stickers, which I think they've got. Lots and lots of you getting in touch. Yes, I would like to let you know how much I enjoy your show, says M. It's the best thing you have done to go it alone. My husband and I boycotted Talk TV completely. They didn't deserve you, and there's no wonder they are losing viewers. The way they treated you was an absolute disgrace. But I suppose they did you a favour because you are thriving on your own. Please, can I have a bumper sticker? I've enclosed a stamped, addressed envelope. Keep up the good work. I love starting the day watching you and your guests. Thank you very much. This one is all about choosing to receive Jesus. A bit long, that one, but thank you. Of course, very kind. And this one from Liana to Mike, Charlotte and Pooch. Keep up the good work. Please send me a sticker. And so, yeah, so lots and lots of you. Sorry? Oh, there's some more there. A little gift. Oh, let's have a look at this. This is from John. Congratulations on launching the ever-popular new home of Common Sense. As part of your ongoing expansion of Herons, I thought a nod towards our brave servicemen and women across all forces who do actually know what the word service means, and hope it makes a positive addition to your new studio. HMS Heron is what we call a shore-based ship, and more commonly known as RNAS Yeovilton, Royal Naval Air Station. One of only 2 RN air stations left in this country, the other being HMS Seahawk. Wishing all the very best success to Charlotte Pooch and your good self. There we go, look at that. That's nice, isn't it? HMS Heron. Lovely. That can go on the wall, Pooch, I think. We'll have to launch it on the wall. We'll put it there. That's from John. Thank you, John. Oh, okay. I've concluded your newsreader is AI and you chose his name as a reversed version of a now disgraced newsreader. You reckon? It's from Flying Sunbeds. Well done. We've only been going for about three months now. And you're absolutely right. We had Pedant of the Day actually yesterday, didn't we? Which was one of the, that's a good one here, look, Deeds. I'm sure I saw Mike in a car boot selling ties and other useless bric-a-brac. It's a very harsh thing to say, that, Dean. I don't go to car boot sales, absolutely untrue. What was the, oh yeah, the pedantry. The pedantry was, can you please ask Edward Hughes to stop smiling at the end of his newscast, because, you know, sometimes he's bringing us bad news. Well, I have no control over his actual emotions, I have to say. And if he's smiling, it must mean he's happy in his work. Which is, oh yeah, the other good one was from somebody on the Substack who sent a question in saying, how do I send in a question? I mean, I don't know what you can say about that, really. But thank you very much indeed. Russell Quirk, I think, is here. So we should talk to him. Because normally Russ does the papers, but he's taking a slight step sideways today to analyse some of the other big stories of the day. Russell Quirk, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. I can't imagine you at a boot sale. Maybe buying tyres. I don't know about selling tyres. You'd be buying them.
Yeah, no, they just give me the ick a little bit. The old car boot sales. It's not like I don't really want to buy second-hand stuff off people. Thanks, you know.
Yeah, it's all a bit dodgy and dirty, isn't it? Boot
Yeah,
sale.
unless you're looking for some tools, power tools, of course, which apparently is the big
lots of
thing.
them. And none of them are stolen.
No, none of them have been stolen, and you absolutely good to buy them for a tenth of the price that they would normally be.
With a warranty and everything.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, there's lots to talk about, but I haven't talked about one story which is on the front of the Times, which I think you'll have a view on. And it's the Times. It's once again, it's the Times' kind of homage to the Labour government, which they seem to be so enamoured with. The headline says France migrants agreement held up by Mahmoud's tougher terms. They're basically trying to convince us that Shabana Mahmoud is so tough that the French can't find an agreement with her for us to give them another 500 million quid to do absolutely nothing about stopping the migrants coming over.
Well, you can imagine that's what the agreement is, isn't it? She said, if we give you another £500 million, could you actually stop a couple of migrants? They said, oh, no, we can't possibly do that. No, that's not what the deal is at all. You give us the money. We walk around on the beaches of Calais pretending to do stuff that might deter migrants. But no, we're not actually going to deter anybody. I mean, we've seen the other headlines, of course, over the last 24 hours. We've seen another 1,000 boat migrants descend, invade, let's use the right word, invade our shores over the last 6 days. And the agreement hasn't actually finished with France yet. So technically, France are still overseeing, being inverted commas, the prevention of migrants coming over to these shores from these camps in Calais. So whilst we've still got 1,000 people coming over during that agreement in 6 days, we're still apparently keen to negotiate with the French to give more of our hard-earned money away for precisely nothing. I mean, this is utterly nuts, isn't it? I think that the government now, I think it's almost like they're trolling us, aren't they? It's like a parody. As if that's and what is, I can't remember who said this. There's a very famous quote about madness, isn't there? If you do the same thing over and over and over again, but expect a different result, it literally is symptomatic to insanity.
Yeah, it is.
And I think our government are doing exactly that. Well, why don't we try the same thing again and again and again at taxpayer expense, risking utter humiliation by the media, the public and so on, and expect the French to say all of a sudden, okay, we're going to start wading into the water and pulling the boats back, or we're going to start puncturing the boats or whatever. Utter nonsense.
No, absolute madness. Well, yesterday the story was, the thing they were feeding out was that Shabana Mahmoud was going to start deporting people before they got the chance to make an appeal. And you kind of just read that and go, no, you're not. You're really not going to do that, because some lawyer's going to pop up out of nowhere like a jack in the box and go, you can't do that. And they'll stay here forever.
We're still beholden, not just to the ECHR. We talk a lot, actually, in politics about the ECHR and how, it might have been set up for all the right reasons back in the day. But, of course, now the world has moved on. But it's not just the ECHR that we've got a problem with. It's this kind of United Nations, and we know how wonderfully useful they are, the United Nations Treaty on asylum seekers, on refugees, which effectively, this is the same law that stops these rapists being deported. They get pulled off of planes at the last minute and allowed to go back to their 4-star hotel. And it's also the same law that prevents people being deported because their kids don't like foreign chicken nuggets.
And of course, that story, do you remember when we did it the first time around? The end of it was, but in the end, he actually was ruled to be inadmissible and he was sent back. But we found out just last week that it turns out actually he's still here, the chicken nuggets guy, and he won an appeal, and he's actually now got the right to remain here because of the chicken nuggets.
And then the other element to this, of course, and we could talk about this all day long, couldn't we? The nonsense, the farcical nature of our immigration system, our border control, border farce, as we constantly call it. The fact now that, secretly, we didn't know this for months and months, that the government's approach, one of their approaches, apart from banning Chinese engines on dinghies, as if that was going to make an iota of difference, that was, we'll leave that aside for 1 second. But the government were paying illegal migrants, asylum seekers, after having spent months and months and months here at the taxpayers' expense. They were paying them up to £3,000 to leave the country. And now we find out that a lot of those individuals are being voluntarily removed, and it is a voluntary thing, so that the government can take no credit for it at all. And then a few weeks later, they come back, right, because they've pocketed the $3,000, and then think, well, actually, I quite like that all-you-can-eat buffet at that Premier Inn I was staying in, and moonlighting as a Deliveroo driver, and so on, and everyone leaving me alone because of this two-tier justice that now means that because I'm brown, I can do whatever I like without any kind of fear of being incarcerated. But now Shabana Mahmood's approach is, well, the $3,000 didn't work, so I know what we'll do. We'll give them $40,000. What? So we've already heard.
Is it not more than the average income of an average working Briton?
Well, it's like winning the lottery. I mean, that's like $60,000 gross of tax, isn't it? $40,000 net. So she's seriously considering doing this in our name, with our money. But we already know that some of those people are coming back through the doors of Dover. In fact, what we should do now, I think, those revolving doors you get in banks in the city. We should kind of install those at Dover, really, and just allow those migrants to come in and out as they please. Take the money. It's like a monopoly game.
Right.
Come in, pass, go, take as much money as you like, go, come back, do it again.
Come back. Yeah, absolutely right. Well, remember that guy the Bell Hotel guy got sent back to Eritrea with about $3,000 in his pocket. That was said to be something like a year's money in Eritrea. Yeah. So if you get $40,000, that's literally, in excess of about 10 to 12 years' money.
Yeah. And then there was another initiative, which everyone's forgotten, but I haven't, which is the government were going to give people money to go back to their own country, to Kuwait or Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever, to use that money to set up their own business. So we've now become the kind of the World Bank of migrant commerce, or whatever you want to call it, where not only can you come here and sit here at the taxpayer's expense, getting swimming lessons, driving lessons, trampoline lessons, and so on, take a load of money back and, I don't know, set up a watermelon stall on Afghan high road somewhere.
Britain is now effectively just a giant cash machine, isn't it? You just turn up. You don't even need a card. You just turn up and somebody hands you a bag of money.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was going back through customs the other day through border control. Like you get back from kind of Malaga or whatever, and there's this 4-hour queue at Heathrow or Stansted. I actually said to my wife, I said, next time we're coming back on a boat. Right? We're gonna buy a dinghy. Me and her and the 3 kids are going to come back across because I won't have to queue up to have my passport checked.
No,
there'll be no kind of it's the new equivalent of fast track at Heathrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just jump on a rubber dinghy.
And also, I've got a tip for you there as well. You can avoid the queue at Dover because there's quite a lot of them coming in there. They've now started importing them into Margate, so you can just or Ramsgate. I think there's a load of border force bringing people into Ramsgate now because I think it's closer to London.
Well, and people wonder why Kent County Council, which happens to be run by Reform, have just declared a migrant emergency. And they're getting loads of stick by the left saying this is disgraceful, this is racist. No, it isn't. I mean, Kent is completely and utterly overrun by people that are invading this country. Let's not forget, we're getting towards 50,000 boat migrants a year now. Now, these are all undocumented people, some with criminal records, some with terrorist intent, and we know that they've got terrorist links, whether it be to Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever. And they're coming here over a period of time. Imagine if the 50,000 landed in a day. What would we call it, Mike? We'd call it an absolute invasion. But because it happens over 365 days, it's kind of all right, apparently.
Yeah. Well, have you seen that latest BBC drama where they've got the journalist? Well, it's a citizen journalist, so they're saying it's not a newspaper journalist or anything like that. But there's basically this scene. We played it out yesterday, where all these people from the Home Office who look very earnest are chatting amongst themselves, saying, this guy keeps putting in FOI requests like he's some kind of mad extremist who's literally just trying to find out how many people have been coming into the country illegally, right? But the whole kind of tenet of the drama is that Home Office good, citizen journalists trying to expose criminality bad.
Well, but that's really Orwellian, isn't it? The fact that you've got, a decent piece of legislation that, although public authorities try and get around FOI requests with exemptions and so on and so forth, it's obviously for journalists and for anybody that's worried about the way their tax pounds are being spent. It's a great bit of legislation. But then to be called some kind of nutter or extremist because actually you're digging into what a local authority or whatever might spend. I'll give an example. I've done a load of FOIs to Essex County Council because they're run by a load of kind of blind, cloth-eared idiots, frankly. And the stuff, Mike, that I've uncovered, let me give you a couple of examples. Essex County Council spends £43 million a year on taxis. When I say taxis, I mean TAXIS, as in private hire vehicles.
Yeah.
43 million quid. Now, obviously, they didn't want me to know that, and I'm now telling everybody here. The wage bill at Essex County Council, £700 million a year, and if that wasn't bad enough, it was only £500 million a year about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's gone up. So, and FOIs, if they didn't exist, wouldn't allow us to find out the fact that, you know, Essex Police, for instance, are spending £614,000 a year on DEI officers, full-time DEI officers. So wonderful piece of legislation. And honestly, I'm going to suggest to everyone watching this that if you've got a bit of a concern about your local council or your local police force or your NHS or whatever in terms of the way that the organisations are run, just go to ChatGPT, ask it to prepare you an FOI request based on whatever it is that you're concerned about, and submit it. And I'm not saying that to try and be troublesome in terms of, you know, causing a backlog within the kind of FOI departments, local authorities, but you have a right to know. You literally have a right to know how these imbeciles are spending your money, because some of it is eye-wateringly stupid.
Yes, it really is, and expensive, really expensive. I'll finish with this for you. You can look forward to looking at the new Lush Cosmetics campaign. They've got a new poster out where they say things like racism is a threat to our communities, not migrants. And then it says, migrants are blamed to distract you, don't fall for it. And then it says, social media platforms create division. And then it says, landlords raise your rent. I mean, I'm not sure what this has got to do with Lush bath bombs, to be honest.
This happened with Ben and Jerry's. Do you remember Ben and Jerry's ice cream, where they decided to take political positions as an ice cream company?
Yeah.
I mean, wow, we thought that a guy with big ears that sold crisps taking political positions was stupid enough, Gary Lineker. Now we've got Ben and Jerry's and Lush taking political positions. This only ends one way for Lush, doesn't it? I mean, guess what? Not that it was a place that I frequented on a particularly regular basis, but I'm now going to ban my kids from going to Lush because, you know, they want to buy bath bombs, not get some kind of political sermon. These people with platforms have no business coercing us as to what we should or shouldn't think. If I want to know what to think, you know, I'll listen to you. Or, you know, for a laugh, I might watch Newsnight or BBC Breakfast, you know. But I don't expect...
Or maybe you'll just come up with your own thoughts because of your own experiences of life during the day or the evening or whatever.
Yeah, and decide what I think is correct or incorrect, rather than Ofcom telling me what balance looks like. No, indeed.
Exactly right. Yeah, you know, here's one for you. We were supposed to get a ladybird expert on this morning, right? It was some kind of entomologist, right, from the University of somewhere or other. I don't know where. Anyway, she agreed to come on to talk about ladybirds and how people's houses are getting infested with ladybirds. But then she found out what my politics were and she pulled out.
What?
Yeah.
The politics of ladybirds.
She cancelled herself on the grounds that she didn't want to appear on my show to talk about ladybirds.
Yeah. I'm not sure how even you could turn that into something politically pointed, really. But
I actually can. I actually can, because there's now lots of different mutated versions of ladybirds, and they're all different colours now.
Well, as we said when we last met last week, Mike, we are being invaded by ladybirds. So I guess on that basis, there is a migrant story to the ladybird element, isn't there? Before I go, the founder, the owner of OnlyFans has just died.
I know. I saw that.
You see that?
I must
Do you think he was just knackered?
Yeah, I think he probably was. I think he hadn't slept for about 3 years. He had a very large right arm as well.
Yeah, no, big right forearm. Yeah.
We're just going to finish up with a Bob Monkhouse joke. He's on the front of the Sun today. This one is good, from The Ghost. Bob Monkhouse joke. Irishman thought Willie Nelson was a wrestling hold. Anyway, back to the 70s. Russell Quirk, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Russell Quirk there, lighting up our lives with his thoughts. And a man who's about to do the same is Mr. Will Geddes, who is here with us. Will, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, these Bob Monkhouse jokes are great, aren't
They're
they?
brilliant.
In fact, there's a couple more that I should do, because there's the son of...
See, I'm old enough to remember him from my childhood.
Yeah. I want to die. I know we've done that one. I want to die peacefully. When I first said I wanted to be a comedian, everyone laughed. They're not laughing now.
Brilliant.
And when the inventor of the drawing board messed things up, what did he go back to? It's quite good, that. It's quite subtle.
It's very good.
Anyway, So speaking of jokes, how about? Well, I've lost my phone. And
oh no!
I can't get hold of any of the data from it.
Oh no!
Because
and
I didn't back
you
it
work
up.
for the government.
Yeah, and I work for the government.
And I was talking to Peter Mandelson.
Yeah, and nobody's going to be able to see my messages
Who'd
now.
have thunk it?
I mean, sorry, we did this quite a bit yesterday. It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Morgan McSweeney we're talking about, the Chief of Staff in Downing Street, the man who supposedly was the mastermind behind the Keir Starmer election campaign, getting Labour into government, forming policy, hiring different people to do different jobs inside of the Downing Street machine. But apparently he can't operate a mobile phone.
Yeah, and he's lost everything, which he hasn't actually, Mike. Sorry to break it to you, but you know what? You can retrieve them.
I mean, ordinary people who listen to this show and who watch this show yesterday were giving me advice and saying, you know, well, if he just goes on his laptop, he'll be able to get all the WhatsApp messages from there. Or in fact, if he just gets another phone and goes into a phone shop, they can help him to download it all from the cloud.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, you get it all from the cloud. Because if you're on iPhone, it's all automatically backed up anyway. So unless you've deliberately turned off the backup capability, which would be actually in contravention of government rules. And government rules are that you need to keep a record of all communications that can be scrutinised later. So you either get them from him, which can be done by a multitude of different ways. It doesn't even need forensics. It's literally an iCloud backup.
Well, I mentioned yesterday the forensics, the company that I use, Tower Forensics, right?
Yeah.
And we'll give them a plug because they did a very good job.
Yeah, brilliant guys.
And they told me, basically, not only can you retrieve messages that you think you've lost,
but the ones you deleted.
But the ones that have been deleted. And also they can find where you were and pinpoint exactly where you were geographically when you had the message sent to you or when you sent the message. I mean, these guys are pretty hot.
Yeah. You can get all the metadata and everything. If you think you can hide, you've got to be very clever to try and hide or to even erase. And you can even see if someone's deliberately tried to erase that data. I've had a couple of cases where people have said, I never knew anything. But you can tell from the digital footprint that they've actually tried to actually remove it and then try and overwrite it. And the one thing is with overwriting is you if you do it enough, then yes, you can eliminate that data completely and you suppress it. You just push it down, push it down.
But he won't have done that.
He won't have done that, but also you could get it from Mandelson's phone. So even if it's not on his and he claims, sorry, Gov, I don't have it, you could get it from Mandelson's phone and you can retrieve even his deleted messages. So if he's deleted, you know how it is, you send something and you go, oops, send it to the wrong person. Press delete,
and then it says delete for
you
everyone.
Could still capture the signature of that. So there's almost like it's like walking out of the kitchen and there's a smell. Someone's cooked in the kitchen. There's still a smell that lingers. You still that's the kind of
told me once,
shadow
I said
that holds.
this yesterday on the show. Who was a guy that worked for one of the big computer companies. He said right at the beginning of the kind of email revolution, he said as soon as you send an email, it is stored somewhere for the rest of time. It will never disappear. Whether it's in a vault somewhere in Switzerland, whether it's on a hard drive in India, whether it's somewhere in the bottom of your hard drive in your own house, it doesn't go. It can always be found.
I don't know. I'm not sure I would 100% agree with that because I think, again, there's only an infinite amount of storage space and data space that can be stored on servers. So there will be this, again, overwriting process. So if it was done 20, 30 years ago, that's one thing. But I think where he is absolutely right is if you put something out on social media. So if you post a comment or a photo and then you've deleted it, the biggest problem is, as you know, Mike, is people will screenshot it, they'll repost it, and this thing can just, proliferate through various different sort of mediums. So the one thing I always say to anybody is whatever you put online, remember you'll never be able to take it off. It's always going to be out there. Someone can find that. But
what if
emails,
puts
different
it online
story.
for you? What if somebody else puts it online?
If they put it on, so again, you've got things like Right to be Forgotten by Google, but people think, you can apply for Right to be Forgotten and have something removed. The problem is that's only territorial. So if you go into another territory and you look up Mike Graham will get his whatever, you could actually find it potentially out there. And then again, depending on who's posted it, I don't want to give too many secrets away, but depending on who posts it, will depend on how difficult it is to remove it.
Right. But again, to go back to Morgan McSweeney, it's a dog ate my homework type statement.
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it? And I mean, how does anybody in authority, for example, this is a police investigation, right?
Yeah.
So presumably, if the police wanted to, they could go into his
iCloud account,
iCloud account, or they could access that, or they could seek to access it, and find all this stuff that he says he doesn't have.
They could, but the problem, I mean, and again, I love the police.
Is that hard to get a court order for?
No, they could do it, and he would probably voluntarily need to give them permission to do so. But again, that's depending on which device he was doing it on. And as we know, Mike, there's this question between whether it was a official work device or whether it was his personal device. And then there's that whole
but there's another question.
crux of the issue. Should he be doing it on a personal device?
I mean, should you be? I think there's a law or certainly a rule in Parliament, in government, about not using your own personal device for sending private messages. I mean, this is what Mandelson was apparently doing, because he was sending emails from a private email address. But he was sending government-related information, which was supposedly confidential.
Happens all the time. I know
so
some
it's not
guys,
a very secure system,
mate. I know loads. I know a couple of people who do the encryption for government devices, and then they issue them to the MPs. And no names, no petrol. But some of those MPs don't even bother using them. But do you remember with President Donald Trump, when he first came into his first term, he was given an official NSA branded sort of phone and devices. And the problem that they had was he was still using his own BlackBerry and using his own personal device to message things. And everybody was going, this ain't secure. They're going to get around it, which I think is going to lead on to, for example, the story we may talk about a little bit later to do with Donald.
Yes.
The problem is that you go outside the wire, so to speak, on security. You're putting all your information at risk.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
But my interest in this is purely and simply, at the end of the day, the truth. Right, Morgan McSweeney, a man at the centre of government, should not be able to just walk away and say, "I've lost my phone."
No,
it got stolen.
It's BS.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and if he's allowed to do that. There is a function on your phone called Find My iPhone, says Wendy. Yeah, of course there is.
Yeah.
Well, when my phone was stolen, I was on the line to the police telling them, look, I can see where it is in Camberwell. There it is.
Yeah.
You know, and they wouldn't go and get it.
I mean, there's so much phone theft in the UK, and especially here in London, but also any other major city. The problem is the police just don't have the capability or resource.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had cases where clients have called me up and said, my phone's just been nicked.
Yeah.
Some bloke on a scooter's legged it, and we can see where it is. And you know, as much as I'd love to send a couple of ex-Hereford characters down to that address to go and collect it,
it's not worth it, maybe.
It's not worth it, and that's the problem.
But the other thing with McSweeney is that, you know, one of the things that they defend him with, and this was Steve Reid on Sunday, the communities minister, he said, oh, well, the thing is, he reported it stolen about a year ago, right? Well, okay, so what about the one that he's had since then? Can we have a look at that, please?
Exactly, and look at the history on that one. And also, it would be interesting to see whether the previous history on the device that was stolen migrated onto his new device
Which
that he replaced.
Which would, wouldn't it? Because if you don't change the account, why
Absolutely.
wouldn't it?
Well, if it didn't, then why didn't it? That's the question. Yeah.
Oh, very tricky stuff.
Yeah.
Fascinating. There was a birthday message that I saw on a super chat. Should we do that before we forget? Because it's always nice to wish people a happy birthday. Yeah, this is from Paula, who says, morning, Mike and Owl, loving the show, and I've got my bumper sticker ready. Could you give a special shout out to my husband? Happy birthday, Paul Baker. Many thanks, Paula. Yeah, very happy birthday. Many happy returns, Paul. I shouldn't say how old you are, but probably old enough to have a bumper sticker. Anyway, if you want a bumper sticker, as I said, they are running out fast. So if you want one, do apply before we run out. Send a C5 stamped addressed envelope to fit an A5 bumper sticker, The Mike Graham Show, PO Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS. Now, Will, you're going to stay with us because...
thank you.
Oh, Starmer's been invaded. No, hang on. I can't say that. I don't think I can read that out. For heaven's sake, man. Anyway, we're going to speak now about hacking, which is the other end, I suppose, of the Morgan McSweeney story, because he's not saying he's been hacked. He's saying he's lost his phone. But our good friend Donald MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod had his Twitter account hacked, and a lot of people are having this happen to them lately.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's really bad.
And he's going to tell us exactly what happened to him. But we're also going to talk to Norman Fenton, who had a similar experience. Norman, very good morning. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. Donald, tell us first of all what happened to you and where you are with it now, because it's been driving you mad, isn't it?
Oh, I'm absolutely going insane about it. As you know, and you wouldn't vote Elon Musk, it was the plank of the week when I was on about it. 6th of March, I got my phone basically hacked. I clicked a click vote for a politician I knew.
Yes.
On my Twitter account, private message, it came up and said, all right, can you put in your password your passcodes, your details, to verify that it is you, which I did. And at that point, my world turned upside down. My Twitter was compromised. My emails were then compromised because I was obviously use email to verify it. And so on and so forth. I had to change my passwords for my email accounts. My backup email, they'd asked me again, said, well, we're not being very successful here. I said, I can't get onto the account, the click vote account. Oh, do you have a backup email? Oh, I did the exact same thing again. So they had that. And it's been driving me insane because it locked me out, and there was suddenly a crypto ad put up in my account saying that I'd made fortunes out of crypto. Yeah. I was like, what? And I couldn't access it at all. Eventually I get, one thing leads to another, and Will steps in kindly and, forever grateful for him doing that to help me set up another account.
And is that open now?
Sadly, I've got the name, I've got the handle, and I can't do any posts on it, even though I'd paid for another verification. So it looks as if they've managed to compromise that one. I also noticed that they put a phone, suddenly on my Apple, it came up, you have registered a new phone, which I only got when I woke up. I said, no, I haven't. Right. Deleted it. But I think they used a phone as another way of getting through the back door to hack my account. Yeah. So, Will, I'm sorry, mate, but I'm going to be bugging the life out of you. And what I'm going to ask you to do is can I give you all my details and you just set me up an account, because the biggest problem here is it just goes round and round in circles when you complain to Twitter. You're not speaking to anybody. There's not one person there you can talk to and explain it, and they say, but your account's active, so everything's okay. No, it isn't. It's not me. And of course, you're just shouting into the void, and round it goes. Now, I did also hear that there was, if you know somebody in the world of advertising or record companies, they deal with Twitter all the time, and they actually know people to talk to. And that's maybe one way further down the line I can speak to somebody. Do you have somebody that does face-to-face meeting with somebody on Twitter that can maybe release?
But that is the problem with all of this online stuff, isn't it? That you can't get to a human being. No, just before you answer us, Will, let's talk to Norman Fenton, who's a mathematician and computer scientist of some renown. Tell us your story, Norman.
Actually, it's exactly the same there. I'd also replied to one of these, what turned out to be a scam message from actually another journalist, I know, Laura Perrins, except I thought I realised straight away when I replied to that, it was asking to vote for me, as a direct message. Right. But then when it asked me to log in, I needed to log into my X account in order to actually do the vote. I realised it was probably a scam, and I immediately changed my password, actually. So I thought I was successful, but then a week later, this time I didn't get a message, but suddenly my X stopped working. And I was presented with the standard login screen on X and saying, well, please enter your username and password to get onto X, which I did. And immediately it said that was the wrong password. And I thought, I've been hacked here. In the next few minutes, people were telling me that there was some ridiculous crypto scam message being posted on my account. And that was the only message up there for a while. Of course, I did the complaint. I got the same nonsense back from X. It's a bit like, it's a bit like calling the fire brigade and being told that they can't confirm it's your house while it's actually being burned down. Complete waste of time with X. I haven't replied. I actually sent them a legal letter now, a letter before legal action to see if that's going to help. But absolutely no response. But the point was that it was only that one message that was up there. But then a few...
Oh, we've just frozen him there.
A few days later, suddenly the message went down. Launch the direct messages asking to vote for me on it. Because what happens is it says, hi, they would have got, all of my contacts would have got a direct message saying, hi,
Yeah. We'll come back to you, Norman, in a sec. We've just got
Can
trouble
I just
with the
add in there, Mike?
Well, let's get Will's. Let's get Will's.
it says
let's just get Will's
like,
explanation.
yeah, this is me. And then they all got scammed as well.
Yeah. So, Will, what's going on?
Okay, so this is exceptionally common. I probably get a call a week from someone who has found themselves hacked in some shape or form. And the problem is it will be on potentially another platform like WhatsApp, for example, or it could be on Telegram or Signal or somewhere else. And the problem is it cross-contaminates. So it creates an environment which you believe to be the genuine environment, say Twitter login page, and you think, okay, great, I'll just put in my credentials because, and it's the standard process of social engineering that they do, which is to put you into some sort of tailspin or panic into thinking, I can't progress further, whether it be voting on this thing, applying for something, or getting into that account without putting my own credentials in there. Now, the one thing that you can do to potentially prevent that from happening in the first place, which is generally the rule, and I know it applied to you, Donald, I know it applied to you, Mike, and it may apply to yourself, Norman. It is the two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. If that comes across, now depends on the sophistication of the attack. You may have had 2FA, but if your phone's been compromised, your SMSs have been compromised, that's why multi-factor is the route to go forward. So that's the only...
Can they not get past that?
They can't get past that. So there's two apps you can download and should download, which is Authy, A-U-T-H-Y, or Google Authenticator. Because what that does is it randomizes. Do you remember the old bank codes? When you wanted to get into your bank account, you'd have a little device which would give you a random number occasionally that you would go into. That's what a Google Authenticator or an Authy Authenticator will do, a multi-factor authentication. So, I mean, I could do a workshop and show you how to spoof SMS 2FA. So the first thing I would say is you need to set up an entirely sterile environment. When I mean sterile, it needs to be in a clean environment, a clean email address, a clean Twitter account. Donald, this is what you and I are going to do. We're going to need a couple of hours together, buddy. We'll do it by Zoom and we'll have some fun. But we're going to create a brand new sterile environment. Nothing associated to anything that you had before. So like your previous email address or your regular email address. And then what you need to do after that is then do a spring clean or a health check on those existing or previous email accounts to make sure they get purged, they get cleaned, and any kind of virus that is potentially attached to it or any hacking or circumvention through password exploitation.
And what are these people getting out of it? What are they doing it for?
What they're doing is they're getting prominent people in the public eye. And this, again, for the viewers, if you see your favorite, personality that you are following, you see something that comes up and talks something very outside of their standard narrative, like crypto, and crypto tends to be the most popular one.
Vote for me in this podcast.
Then you just got to go. You've got to question it. It's a bit like someone calling you up and saying, "Hi, I'm your bank. I need to verify some dubious or suspicious transactions that have happened on your credit card or your account, or we've frozen your account because there's some sort of problem." So again, they're looking to panic you into revealing information that you wouldn't necessarily share easily. So you've just got to be a little bit practical. Take a deep breath before you answer that question. Click on that link, download that picture.
But part of the problem, guys, as well, and I'm sure both of you have been suffering on this one, is we're always in such a hurry. You know, I mean, I'm halfway through, getting on a tube and I'll be going on the escalator and I'll be on Twitter, and I'll just hit something. And that's what happens, isn't it? Because you're not always in a safe environment or a clean environment, and you're just kind of, it's one of hundreds of things you're doing.
Well, the problem that I see is you have to believe in people. So you get somebody you think you know, private message, and they actually talk to you with the private message, say this isn't working. Oh, wait a few moments and then try again. So they draw you in, and then you're finding yourself in this click vote scenario, and at that point you're hacked. So belief, but the major problem, it's very traumatic. You are then suddenly going through all your contact, you're going through all your passwords, your sleeps, have they got bank details, have they got credit card details, all that. it drives you insane. And it's the trauma that I feel personally invaded. I was going to. You just feel shocked. And it's dealing with.
And also, you're
it.
worried then, presumably, that
yes,
they're
else they got the members of your family, stuff like that.
Right. Well, also they'll come after you. I mean, I remember I was worried I was going to open up my bank account one day and all the money was going to be gone. Because you don't know.
Well, that's happened to me before.
Yeah, well, I know that's happened to you. Well, somebody just put Swiss Tony, actually. Should we have that again? Yeah. He's put this up. He said the common thread is Donald. He bought a crane believing it was a heron. It's just,
I mean, it's a bit like your Substack, mate. It's like your Substack. So you were talking earlier about people believing that they were communicating with you.
Me, yeah,
on Substack. Now, people need to, and I remember when you first set up your Substack for the show,
few of them,
there were a few people who were trying to do this immediately. So anybody who gets some sort of communication purporting to be you, and I just did this for a very big band, a big rock band, who had one of their band members contacted by some woman who believed that she was being communicated by him. Now, one of the things I got the band to do was basically post something on their social media to say, be very, very cautious. If you believe that you've been communicated by us, please pass this on to our management. If there is something, then we will obviously sort it out. But your Substack thing, people have got to be super careful. If they believe they're getting it from you, the key thing here, unless you're talking state-sponsored like Israel or Iran or the UK or the US, it will generally be a link to something. It could be a poll. It could be a link to an external website. It could be a picture. Do not click on that, because what that allows is that virus or that Trojan software to then be infiltrating into your device. Donald, I can give you some sort of reassurances that the cross-contamination to your bank accounts and that sort of thing is unlikely to have happened, because you will have gateways into those accounts online, whether it be your passwords or anything else. But the one thing I would say everybody has to do, and Mike, I remember I did this with you after your phone was hacked, is make sure you've got good anti-malware, antivirus software on your devices. And that includes your phones as well. And make sure you run it and update it and clean it. And if there's Apple updates, make sure you do those Apple updates, because they also detect what we call zero-day exploits. And that new update will always have some sort of security fix in there. So just keep things
updated. How
do
you know it's Apple?
Well, that's a good question. So, Norman, you said you sent legal letters to X. What's the status there? Have they answered those?
No, but interesting enough, it was they actually received it yesterday, as I said, to recorded delivery. And for the first time since this all happened, I actually did get an email from X today with saying there may be something they can do to reinstate my account.
Okay.
Do you have an address, please, that you could put out there of that?
I had to send a reply to an email.
Right. We're still struggling.
I mean, there was one thing which happened to Norman, and also to Donald as well, which I think is really key here, is their account was compromised. They contacted Twitter. They gave proof of identity. It was also verified account, which costs is a subscription cost, which I think now applies to everybody. And ultimately, what they didn't do was suspend that account and prevent any further posts being put on it. Now, that is massively disappointing by Twitter, because X, or X, whatever they want to call themselves these days, if there is suspicion on your bank account, your bank will suspend that credit card, or they'll suspend that account until they can verify. X, if it's charging you money to have that account, you most definitely should be able to suspend that account temporarily until they figure out what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
100%. I wonder if you could ask Charlotte or Push to speak, Norman there, if you can pass the studio the address that you wrote to and the department, because again, all I've got is somewhere in Ireland you can speak to.
Oh no, it's actually an address in central London. If you go on to, I can probably give it to you. I actually got it from ChatGPT. Just asked for the London address to send a letter before legal action to. In fact, it did actually do the letter for me, so it was actually very good. And
well, can you maybe send a copy of your letter? Sorry.
So the fact that I sent it yesterday and I did get a response today suggests that that maybe the letter has actually triggered some action. I don't know yet, because this only just happened. I don't know yet whether they have actually stopped the scammers putting stuff on my account, because they were literally, I mean, once they sent all the garbage, vote for me direct messages, which went to all of my contacts, they then were absolutely spamming my X account with hundreds and hundreds of crypto scam messages as well. So that was still going on. I mean, the problem for me is that, I'm a public figure. I've got 93,400 followers. And, some of these are sort of, it's not just the academic context. There's sort of lots of influencers there. I was going to be using this to advertise my forthcoming book. It's my major means of actually communicating with people. And that's all lost to me now, because the credibility that I built up with that account has now been lost.
Yeah, I know. It's really infuriating. Well, listen, guys, wish you luck, and I'm sure if anyone can fix it, Bill can, because he's a man of mystery and an international superstar. So he'll be able to sort it for you, I'm sure. It's like having James Bond on your side. You'll be in good shape. But listen, I wish you both well, and I'll talk to you guys soon, because time is running out, believe it or not. I've got another, talking of idiotic things that happen, Pooch, right? Yeah. We've got this system now where we're asking you to send in stamp address envelopes for bumper stickers, right? Some people are sending A4 envelopes instead of C5 envelopes. And do you know what happens? No. The post office charge a surcharge, right? So they've now asked for 14 quid for three separate letters, right? Wow. 14 quid. Which I'm afraid we're not going to pay. And we do say to you, and I know this is going to be maddening for you, but don't send an A4 letter, because what the post office say is that an A4 letter costs more money, even if you folded it over, right? So it's a scam, basically, run by the post office. It's no wonder they're going out of business. And they're saying, basically, that for 3 separate letters, they want 14 quid to hand them over. And we're not going to pay it. Simple as that. So do try, and I know it's complicated, it's difficult, it's a pain in the neck, but these bloody Jobsworths have got these rules, and we're simply, we're a very new business. We're not going to start paying, 5 quid to get your letter so that we can send you a free bumper sticker. It's just not going to happen. This from Mr. Gillespie. Starmer's creepy thumb-pointing and Lush's moralising bath bombs could be weaponised in the Strait of Hormuz. Scarier than nuke submariners snorting coke. I see what you did there, Mr. Gillespie. Absolutely right. We've got a couple of quick messages more, have we? Okay, sorry. Super chat from Something Wickedly. Oh, I miss our Donald, says Shona. Well, don't worry. I'm sure you'll see him on your screens again soon. I'm sure he'll be on a Plank of the Week or something very shortly as well, which of course is coming up on Friday, as you would expect. And Plonk of the Week this week is going to have a special guest because Marilyn Hawes is going to be joining us, which should be fun. I don't know what she's going to be like after a couple of glasses of sherbet. And also, I'll be getting my hair cut during Plonk of the Week as well. We got one more? Yeah. Here we go. LTL. Morning, Mike, from Wallis Fortuna. Is that a place?
Yeah, it's just off the coast of Fiji.
Is it?
Wow.
All right, well, that's good. Well, maybe if you can pass me the cork board later, Pooch, we'll stick that on in the South Pacific as well. Thank you very much indeed. We've had quite a few, actually, good new locations, but still nothing in South America. No. So do try and go there and just tell us you're listening from there, so we can build it up. Because it's got a great big sort of just landmass of nothing. No pins at all. Absolutely shocking. Now, coming up, we've got to say thank you very much indeed to Will Geddes.
Pleasure, sir.
I mean, you're very welcome to hang around if you want.
Okay.
And thank you for bringing me. Yeah, very, very welcome to sit there. But we're going to talk now to Gavin Ashenden, who is, of course, a man of the moment. We need to talk to him about the state of play here in the UK with regard to what happened the other night in Golders Green. We've got all sorts of Labour politicians falling over themselves to say how shocking it all is that anti-Semitism has raised its ugly head, as if they haven't watched it happening for the best part of the last 2.5 years since October the 7th, 2023. Gavin, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, good to see you. Your last time you were on, people were absolutely thrilled with some of the things you said and some of the ideas you put forward. A lot of people, a lot of sensible people, it seems to me, not politicians, have looked at what happened in Golders Green the other night, where 4 ambulances were set on fire. by people who are apparently claiming to be linked to the Iranian regime, is not particularly surprising because that's the direction of travel, unfortunately.
Yes. The trouble is we've been fed a lot of propaganda that isn't true about Islam and its intentions. In about the year 2000, I was working with some Islamic colleagues when I was working for a university. And one of the things that they said was that their intention was to create the Islamic Republic of Great Britain, and they would do it simply by numbers, by demography. And that one of two things would happen. Either there'd be a formal secession of territory, or else there'd be a de facto Islamic presence. And the Islamic community would vote for Islamic parties and ultimately for Sharia law. The problem with this Islamic project is that Islam is dedicated to eradicating the Jews, which is what's happening, why we have what's happening in Israel and Gaza and the Middle East. And what we're doing by importing large numbers of Muslims to our country is we're importing essentially a death cult that wants to destroy the Jews. We've done our own damage to the Jews in Europe in the last 80 years, and we were horrified at ourselves. It's extraordinary that only 80 years after 6 million Jews were eradicated by the far right, a new religious far right is here trying to do something similar.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you call it that, because actually that's probably a more accurate name, in a way, for some of the fundamentalist Islamic wishes, if you like, for the rest of the world.
Well, the group that's taking responsibility for the Golders Green burning of ambulances is called Harakat Ashab al-Yasmin al-Islamiyah, and it means the Islamic movement of the people of the right. So they themselves are using that term. But effectively, of course, I mean, terms left and right are awkward to use, but it's perfectly reasonable to see Islam as an authoritarian, Jewish-hating political movement of the right. It's a mixture. Yeah. Islam is a rich mixture of religion and politics. It can use whichever side of its face is useful to it at the time. Yeah. At the moment, it's using a political side, and it's setting out to destroy the Jews.
And there's no question, is there, that whenever you get involved in the kind of public discourse about these subjects in Britain right now, particularly on social media, I'm always quite surprised at how vitriolic the anti-Jewish lobby is, and how vitriolic the pro-Iranian lobby is as well. And you have to wonder where those two things kind of overlap. At the moment, we know why they overlap, but you know, people basically saying, yeah, of course the Iranians fired a missile at Diego Garcia because Britain's helping America to try and destroy them. And you're kind of going, yeah, but you live in Britain, so why would you be backing a foreign-based nation which completely and utterly mistreats its own people, kills its own people, is a danger to everybody in the Middle East and the rest of the world? You'd rather defend that than you would Israel or America?
I think one of the things that we can say when we're asked about our sympathies, particularly concerning Israel, because, of course, the countercharge now is that we're all very nasty Zionists, and Zionism is taken to be seen to be an unpleasant expansionist colonial power. And I'm absolutely sure that the Israeli government do things that I don't like and wouldn't approve of and would never support. There are things that the settlers do in Israel that are immensely problematic. But the problem is that Islam, just like a bully, presents itself as either very powerful or else an enormous victim. Yeah. So one of the things that Sadiq Khan is saying at the moment is, oh no, look, Muslims have burnt 4 ambulances in Golders Green, and now everyone's got Islamophobia. The Muslims are the victim. Yeah. And the Muslims as the victim line is what the left have been pushing for forever, really. But it's essentially what we have to do is be able to speak out and tell the truth. Islam is a religion of conquest. If you have any doubt at all, go onto TikTok or Twitter or any of the YouTube channels where you'll find British Muslims saying they've come here to take over, to dominate. It's a matter of pride and ambition. And what the left are doing is having this constant stream of propaganda, trying first of all to shut us up by saying you're Islamophobic, as if it was irrational to have a fear of the movement which in the last 30 or 40 years has launched 200,000 terrorist attacks. Right. But anyway, so they're trying to shut us down, and we have to tell the truth. And so thank you again for your program, because it allows us to tell the factual truth about this struggle between Islam, which has a hatred of Jews, and then, frankly, after its hatred of Jews, it has a really strong dislike of the West. So, if we don't defend the Jews, they'll come after us next. Which, of course,
absolutely,
we know
and that, of course, is what kind of informs all of their opinions. For example, I mean, I'm just looking at Twitter now over the incident, the burning of the ambulances, and quite a few people are now, because of their hatred for Israel, saying, "Oh well, obviously it's a false flag operation. You know, the Israelis did it to themselves because that way that they can, you know, forge ahead and attack Gaza and all the rest of it." You know, I don't know what you say to people like that.
Well, I think one of the things you say every single time is that if the Palestinians laid down their arms and stopped using their children as human shields, there would be peace in the Middle East tomorrow night. I mean, there wouldn't be, you know, Israel, everything Israel does, and I'm not defending Israel on any other grounds than it's a democracy, and I like democracies. Everything Israel does in the Middle East is essentially defensive, with, of course, some exceptions about bad behavior with an expansionist state. I mean, but as far as I'm concerned, all states are liable to behave badly, and what you do is you call them to account for it. But what you don't do is call for a genocidal eradication of the state, which is what Islam is doing as far as Israel is concerned. That's what from the river to the sea means. Let us genocidally wipe out all the Jews.
Yeah, and that's also what global intifada means as well. I mean,
Will,
you'll be involved in security for a lot of people in this country and possibly overseas as well.
Yep.
Is there a kind of uptick in kind of people's concerns about safety? I'm talking about high-risk individuals that you would be dealing with.
I mean, not just high-risk individuals. I mean, Gavin's absolutely right. I can't fault anything that Gavin's just said. It's pragmatic, it's common sense. Fundamentally, the problem that you've got is you look at the security services, MI5 here in the UK, they're dealing with their caseloads. Approximately 75% of it is Islamic extremism. So this whole sort of myth about far-right groups, and I mean, and there is this ambiguity because Gavin's absolutely right. The group that is claiming responsibility or did so on Telegram for the attack on the ambulances in North London have been involved in 4 other attacks this month. This group is only about a month old. They undertook an attack in Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Belgium, and in Greece against synagogues, Jewish schools, and this is a particular group that has been funded and has direct ties to the IRGC. So you have, because the way Iran is playing and the way that they're using their proxies, you have all the other GC countries, you have all the other regional countries, everywhere from the Emirates to Qatar to Bahrain, you know, to Oman. You have all those countries now fearful because those attacks coming in from Iran, obviously by the state in terms of ballistic missiles, Shahed drones and various other types, is showing that they've got no friends whatsoever in the Middle East.
And they don't care, apparently.
No, absolutely, and I've been forecasting that for the Emirates, the fight ain't over yet. I mean, and despite I saw your post yesterday about Donald Trump turning around and saying yes, a ceasefire's been agreed, and Iran turning around and saying no, it hasn't, and stand by for a big surprise. And how that big surprise is going to be delivered, again, we will only find out. But I think we've got to deal with our cowardly government in terms of, and you mentioned Diego Garcia as a great case in point. It's a key critical location for us. You know, we launched the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War in Afghanistan as a staging post and a forming up position in Diego Garcia. It's a critical position for us. And yet our government's going, not us, Gov. We've got nothing to do with it.
Well, they're trying to give it away. Yeah. Extraordinary times. Gavin, listen, good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we'll see you again, I'm sure, very soon. I'll finish up with this. Somebody sent it in and said, would you mind reading out Martin Niemöller's famous quote, which you'll know, of course.
Very good.
First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unions, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Such a great quote.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Gavin, as ever, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Gavin Ashenden there, a former chaplain, of course, to the royal family, to the Queen, no less. We've got Lord Moylan to speak to. Somebody just sent me these, but there's no apparent place that it came from, because it's come from a manufacturer, but they're smaller pins, Pooch.
Oh, really?
Which are rather cool, because it means that we can be a bit more pinpoint accurate on the old board.
Love it.
Because the thing with the big pins is that they tend to, you stick one over London and it covers
That's
all
it.
the way up to Manchester. so these will be a little bit
all
more
the way
precise.
to Glasgow.
This will be a bit more precise. Absolutely right. Should I open a couple more bits and bobs? Here's a.
Do you want me to check them for you first, mate?
Just make sure.
Nothing smelling of marzipan, which is always promising.
No anthrax.
Yeah.
This is somebody who's put up a nice Mike Graham show bumper sticker on a notice board, which
That's
is very
cool.
good. There you go. There we are.
Nice.
A notice board. There's nothing on from saying who it's from. This is from Fiorella. What a great name that is.
Fiorella, great name.
Dear Mike, Pooch and Charlotte, thank you and well done on achieving the impossible. A fantastic new independent Mike Graham show in record time too. Keep up the good work. A bumper sticker on its way to you. Let's see what else we've got here. Hello, Mike, Pooch and Charlotte. Mike, it was you I mostly watched on Talk. Bad of them to do what they did to you. One door closes, another one opens. You are much better off now, so they did you a favour. I enjoyed Plank of the Week and Plonk of the Week too. And this is the heron keyring I gave you yesterday. Came in from this with a trolley key. It's quite a clever one. This. It's got one of those. You know when you have the coin for the trolley. I know you probably don't get to see them often, but in case you haven't got a pound coin,
that which is regularly the case.
Exactly right. I hesitate to send one for Edward Hughes as I'm not sure if he's real. Some of his speech sounds a bit like a bot. This is from Belinda. Should I find out he's a real person, I will send one. NB, I will send it direct to you, as you now know who it will be from. Keep up the good work. And she's from the Carmarthenshire area of South Wales, a little village called Tumbo, is it? Although not so little now as it's grown over the years. Very nice. Well done.
Sweet.
Thank you very much. Keep those coming. As I say, Will Getty's great listening to him. Says Mi Alamo La Cucaracha. Very nice name.
Thank you.
And we've got more to do coming up in the next hour. We're going to be speaking to a man who's going to be telling us about the, I think, the biggest miscarriage of justice, we're going to be told, that's ever happened in the United Kingdom. A former British Transport Police Superintendent with 30 years service across major rail disasters. That's Clive Freeman is his name. He was later the government's Regional Resilience Director for the South West and head of UK Emergencies Response for the British Red Cross. But he spent 37 years in prison for a 1989 arson and murder conviction, now being referred to the Court of Appeal, potentially the UK's longest-running miscarriage of justice. I'm not familiar with this case, so I'm looking forward to talking to him about that. Plus, Lord Daniel Moylan is coming up as well. Should we get some news first? News with Edward Hughes.
Morning. I'm Ed Hughes. The escalating conflict between the US, Israel and Iran dominates the headlines. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has told Parliament this is not our war, and Britain will not be dragged into it, while chairing a Cobra meeting on the potential impact on living costs and energy prices. The UK government says it supports defensive action, but insists there is no direct threat to Britain, despite reports of incidents near the Diego Garcia base. In London, counter-terror police are investigating a suspected anti-Semitic arson attack in which 4 ambulances belonging to the Jewish volunteer charity Hatzolah were set on fire in Golders Green. Prime Minister Starmer has described it as horrific, and the community has raised over £1 million in emergency funds. Other stories: concerns are growing over the economic fallout from the Middle East crisis, with unemployment already at a 5-year high, and ministers are facing questions about cybersecurity preparations amid heightened tensions. That's the main news from the UK this morning. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Thank you. That's Edward Hughes there with the news headlines. We're going to talk now to Lord Daniel Moylan, Conservative peer, opposition transport spokesman in the House of Lords, of course, a former deputy chairman of Transport for London, and chief advisor to Boris Johnson when he was mayor, overseeing a couple of different big projects there. Lord Moylan, a very good and warm welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Good morning, and it's very nice to be here.
Excellent. And now I'm going to ask you about Keir Starmer a little while, because I think it's only fair to see, after his performance yesterday in front of a select committee, which was rather left something to be desired. But let's talk first of all about some of the business in the House of Lords of late. The assisted dying bill, which has seemingly got caught up in quite a lot of administrative weeds, and nobody's quite sure where it's going. And also what some people think was rather hasty voting through of the abortion bill, which allows women to terminate fetuses up to sort of term, effectively.
Yeah, Well, I think we do know where the assisted dying bill is going at the moment, and it's going nowhere. The parliamentary session we all think, is about to end sometime in May, April or May, and we'll have a state opening, which will start the new parliamentary session. And the bill has to pass all its stages in Parliament in the current parliamentary session. And we're not even halfway through it in the House of Lords. And that's because primarily it's such a complicated, difficult and risky bill, and it's being introduced without any preparation because it's a private member's bill. If it was a government bill, they could have done consultation, they could have done pre-legislative scrutiny. A lot of the questions that we have could have been sorted out in advance, but they didn't bother with that. They wanted to sneak it through without the government having its moniker on it. So it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
As far as the sorry, Mike.
So I was going to say, so is that a permanent going nowhere, or can it be rescued by those who wish to rescue it?
They can try and bring it back in the next parliamentary session, but the messages coming out of number 10 are that Sir Keir has lost the appetite for it, really, and I'm not surprised, because even if you pass the bill, there's a 4-year implementation period with lots of detail to be filled in, so that in the run-up to the next general election, Parliament will be debating such things as which particular poison you'd be using. They'd be debating regulations for assisted suicide in prisons, and so on. It'd be really miserable for the electorate, I think, and not give. I mean, they just get identified with assisted dying when what they want to be identified with is growth, a bouncing economy, clean energy, and peace abroad.
Right.
That's what they'd like.
They would like that. There's so much that they would like that they're not getting, I think, at the moment, that people are sort of generally floating around in a kind of sea of confusion, going, where on earth is this all heading, you know? But it's kind of ironic in a way that the assisted dying bill is going nowhere, and yet, I mean, you might make a connection between the abortion bill in the same way that that people used to say in America when George Bush was president. You know, he doesn't believe in abortion. He thinks that you should be born and you should grow up in poverty and then commit some kind of horrible crime before you get executed, you know? And there's a kind of irony to all of that. And I similarly think there's one to abortion, because a lot of people are quite surprised that the Lords voted this through.
Yeah, well, I think the cases are rather different. A lot of people are very confused about abortion, about assisted suicide. They're genuinely puzzled by how vulnerable people are going to be protected. They need a lot of persuasion. Whereas there's a sort of consensus now, on the left at least, and in the feminist world, that abortion is a sort of right, and anything that increases access to abortion must be a good thing. Now, not everybody at all agrees with that. And a lot of people feel that this step, which was inserted in the Commons after only 45 minutes backbench debate, and then came to the Lords, where it was only debated for a couple of hours, and has nobody's done any impact assessment on it or anything like that. This is going too far. It's basically saying that abortion remains a crime beyond 24 weeks, but we won't prosecute the mother for it, even if she's involved in all sorts of fraudulent misrepresentations in order to procure the pills, which is only possible because we introduced pills by post in COVID as a temporary measure. And then, of course, you know, the feminist wing moved to make that permanent as fast as they could. And that was voted through after midnight in the House of Lords a couple of years ago.
Right. And is that's the morning after pill, I guess you're referring to? Is that something that can be taken?
No, it's not. It's not that as such. It's that a lot of people think, maybe ignorantly, that if you want an abortion, you have to go to a clinic where you have an operation. Right. That's how it used to be 40, 50 years ago, and that's true of some people still today. But 80%, I think, of abortions nowadays are not carried out surgically. They're carried out by taking a series of pills, a combination of pills. And it used to be the case until COVID that in order to get the pills, you had to go to the clinic, because 2 doctors are still meant to be signing this off.
Yeah.
But as a temporary measure, it was agreed that you could ring up and they'd post the pills to you. And you'd have to say how far your gestation period was, and they'd believe you. And that's pills by post, and that's been made permanent now. So the very few cases where women have been prosecuted in the last couple of years have been cases caused by pills by post, where the woman has blatantly and deliberately and fraudulently lied, claiming that her baby, which is 30 weeks plus, was actually under 24 weeks or under 7 weeks or whatever, because there are different limits, and was lying about it.
But
and
that,
that's
of course,
what's
is
been prosecuted.
And that's the great weakness of the system of doing everything online. I mean, everything the government wants to do online is now open to, abuse and open to people who will fraudulently achieve whatever it is that they want, because they don't have to go and see anybody anymore. I mean, they're now trying to do it with British citizenship, I believe. They're trying to say that people should be able to pass exams online instead of having to go and do them. All of that, this is kind of a move online, which makes everything much less secure, doesn't it?
Well, everything's going to be online. We're all going to have a digital ID, and it'll work perfectly. I mean, everything that comes out of this government, it has a mild air of unreality about it. Nobody quite believes that it's ever going to happen, and if it does happen, it's going to work, or it's going to do what it says. And that's not surprising when you've got a government that is claiming that the high cost of electricity has nothing to do with the huge levies on electricity needed to subsidise wind farms and solar, which is they're pushing madly for.
Yeah. Well, they continue to talk about pulling all levers that they can to reduce the cost of living, and yet never actually talk about moving into the area of maybe petrol and saying, well, a 51 to 52% tax on petrol at the pump could possibly be reduced to make it a little bit cheaper for people. They don't seem to want to countenance that at all.
No, well, they need the money. I mean, they're boxed in everywhere they turn, I have to admit. But they're amazingly incompetent along with it. And also, I think, just very unlucky. I mean, Napoleon said, you want your generals to be lucky. And the people of Britain would like their governments to be lucky. Lucky governments for whom things turn out well on our behalf. And this government just seems to be immensely unlucky. Whatever it turns its hand to. I mean, this was going to be the year of getting the cost of living down. And within a couple of weeks of it starting, we've got an oil war going on. I mean, it's sort of, you almost, I mean, I don't want to say this, but you almost want to feel sorry for them.
I know what you mean. No, I mean, I remember when Starmer stood up in Parliament and said, soon you're going to start feeling better off. Soon you're going to start feeling like you've got more money in your pocket. And everyone was kind of going, sorry, when is that? And that was before the oil war. It was never going to happen.
No.
And he's now actually behaving in quite a tetchy manner. I don't know if you saw his appearance before the select committee yesterday.
Well, he sometimes loses his temper. And I don't blame him if things go as badly wrong for you as they do for Sir Keir. You would occasionally lose your temper, I suppose. Rage against heaven.
But, I mean, as a politician, though, does there come a point, and this would be my question to you, as a politician, does there come a point, for example, when you go, all right, the game's up, I can't do the job, it's proven to be far more difficult than I thought it would be, I'm assailed on all sides, I've lost the confidence of my own party, I've lost the confidence of the country, I'm the most hated Prime Minister that's ever lived, maybe I should just resign. I mean, is there any point at which he will be that self-aware?
Most politicians don't see the world quite that way, I think it's fair to say. And the history of incompetent prime ministers willingly resigning because they recognize their weaknesses is a very short book. So it isn't fair, I think, to say that Sir Keir is unusual in this regard. No, I think he'll probably do his best to carry on. And it's always somebody else's fault, and he's been let down.
Yes. He must wonder, as you say, though, whether he is in fact cursed, because every time he turns around, even if it isn't his fault, which most of it is, by the way, there's nothing happening that's in any way good. Even if we get out of this particular crisis that we're in now, there's been a crisis pretty much every week they've been in charge.
Looking back, he will have had a pretty miserable time as prime minister. There are, most prime ministers can look back on something which they're really proud of, or they just really enjoyed.
Yeah.
It might have been, we had the Olympic Games. There was a high point during my time as prime minister, they would say, and something I can really enjoy, or I've got a legacy I can look back to. I mean, Harold Wilson always said, it was founding the Open University was his great legacy. He could point to something. It's just very hard to see that Sir Keir has even had one jolly day. I mean,
no. And even on the weekend, Arsenal lost the Carabao Cup.
Yeah. It's always raining for Sir Keir.
It is. With your transport hat on, I wanted to ask you about HS2 as well. There's a story knocking around this week that the government has ordered the company building the project to consider lower speeds on the line. Surely, if you're not going to go high speed on the HS2, you can't call it the HS2 anymore. They have to call it LS2, won't they? Low speed.
No, it won't be low speed either. And it was never really built. It was always a marketing mistake, as everyone acknowledges, to call it high speed 2 in the first place.
Yeah.
Because it was never going to be a high speed railway. It's going to be a fast railway, but not a 500 miles an hour through the desert type railway. It was never going to be madly high speed. And it was there to provide more capacity because the lines are very congested. Unfortunately, the congestion is mostly north of Manchester and north of Crewe. So they should really have started building it in the north and then worked south, because that's where the capacity is needed. But they didn't for some reason. Don't ask me.
Right.
And they ran out of money before they got to Manchester.
And now they're not going anywhere north of Birmingham anyway.
That's right. I mean, one day they will. One day somebody will pick it up and they'll say, we can do this. We've cracked it. We can find a way of doing it. I mean, it might be, but you can still build an extension to the railway. Doesn't stop.
But I mean, this is not going to be ready. I'm going to be dead by the time I think this comes out. I mean, 2033 was the deadline. They're not going to make that, apparently. So it could be 2040. I mean, God knows when it's going to be ready.
And they still have no plan for the London end, how to get into Euston.
No.
I mean, they can build the tunnels, and they are building the tunnels, but the platform configuration at Euston, where you actually put the trains, is still defeating them. You've got to rebuild the station.
Yeah. Yeah.
More or less.
And I thought they were rebuilding the station anyway, but the Euston station...
They started out rebuilding the station. They had a plan. They thought they had a plan. The plan doesn't seem to work. And it was also partly dependent on paying for itself through development over the site. But the truth is it's now so expensive that no amount of development is going to pay for it. It doesn't matter what you put on the site. You won't make enough money to pay for all the new things you need at Euston.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's still planned that you'd get off at Old Oak Common.
Right. Which is nowhere near Euston and would negate the 20 minutes extra that you saved by getting to Birmingham faster, or from Birmingham faster, and you land up in the Woodward Scrubs.
You jump on the Elizabeth line.
Yeah. Yeah, which is fine, but that's also more hassle, isn't it? I mean, who knows? I mean, it's just... Why are we so useless at this stuff, though?
I really wish I knew the answer to that question, because the person who knows the answer to that question, will be king. That is the key question. Why have we become so useless at stuff when we used to be so good at it?
Yeah.
And we were, when I was a child, we were terribly good. If we wanted to build a new aeroplane or a new tank or a new, fighter aircraft, we didn't think of buying it from some foreigners. We built it, just gone with it and built it. And didn't always work, admittedly, but we were, and we were very good at building our British nuclear power stations. But we just gave it all up, and it just got expensive, and we put more levies on it, and then we decided we could get it cheaper from foreigners, and it never is cheaper in the end. And so we just lost the skills and the mindset, which said, yeah, you want it, we'll build it.
Yeah, I know, shocking. Lord Moylan, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Mike. Very nice to talk to you.
got quite a few different subjects going there. Lord Moylan there, former Transport Minister and also a kind of transport guru now in the House of Lords. Will Getty's still here with me. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But here we go. The poll, which all of you were dissing earlier when we put it out, now 4,500 people pretty much have voted on it. Who would you rather have in charge of the Straits of Hormuz? The Ayatollah, Keir Starmer, Peter Mandelson or Tony Blair? The answer, the winner, is the Ayatollah. As we said earlier, this does not mean that we're going to give the Straits of Hormuz to the Ayatollah. I mean, Donald Trump's in the papers today saying that, he'd be happy to run it with the Ayatollah. So you never know. Is that your phone going?
No.
Somebody's ringing. Somebody's trying to break in. Lucky Will Geddes is here. You can fight them off.
Get ready, Mike.
Adopt the defensive position.
That's it.
Why are we so useless at these projects?
I don't know. I mean, I remember the days, because I'm old enough to remember this now. I've been many decades old.
Yeah.
That we were so proud. We had British Steel. We had. I mean, okay, they didn't produce the best of products, as Lord Moylan was saying. I mean, do you remember the mini metros and stuff like that?
Yeah.
We had
the Austin Allegro.
Austin Allegro, what a piece of
that
kit.
was a terrible car, wasn't it? Dear God. One of the worst cars ever made. Would you stop ringing the doorbell, whoever you are?
Yeah, damn you.
You know.
Damn you.
We don't even know there is a doorbell, by the way.
Mike.
Yeah, exactly right.
But yeah, I mean, we used to be proud about our homegrown industry, but everything's now imported.
Well, look at the shipbuilding industry we used to have, which was brilliant. As you say,
mining.
British Steel, coal that we used to dig up out of the ground. The car business used to be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't the best cars in the
No,
world.
but we still have a great name for the luxury end. Bentleys, Rolls Royces, Aston Martins, Jensens. But of course, many of Jaguar Land Rover now is owned by the Indians, isn't it?
Yep.
Tata.
Yeah.
And I think, is Bentley not owned by Ford or something? Rolls Royce now.
Yeah.
So I think there's no kind of
everything's just
multinational.
We're reliant on every other country's products now to a certain extent. So, but which and I'm no economist, but by proxy, that means we're then liable for all the tariffs that come from it. And I'd love to know, Mike, and I don't know, and it's well above my pay grade. But what are our principal exports to other countries that they can't get from anywhere else?
Well, luxury cars, I think, but as I say, they're all owned by foreign companies.
Yeah.
There we are. A couple of things we need to do, Pooch, I think. We did an update on the poll. That's fine. Have you seen that picture that's come in from Substack, which is somebody asking for a bumper sticker? It's brilliant. Send me. It's been done in the style of a ransom note, right?
Yeah, I've seen a few of those.
Send me a free sticker now, or the heron gets it.
Give it to me, Pooch. Yeah, we'll find out who they are.
Very funny. And of course, before we talk to our next guest, Tony Thompson, former British Transport Police Superintendent, of course, he's a passionate advocate for the release of Clive Freeman, who may well be a person who has been perhaps the biggest miscarriage of justice, the longest running miscarriage of justice in the UK. But before we do that, we've also got some news to do, and we've also got a homage, have we not, to Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris, who died a couple of days ago, and who, by all accounts, was an amazing... I don't know if you ever knew him.
No, I never met him, unfortunately.
But apparently...
Everybody I know who did said that he was just the nicest, most humble guy ever. Yeah. And he really lent into the whole Chuck Norris mythology and the jokes.
Well, this is what we're about to watch, because he was very funny about his kind of his abilities to frighten people, because he was a sort of a master of all sorts of karate and
martial arts.
And she did, yeah.
I like the recent one, which was basically all the terrorists are now very worried about their 99 virgins when they get up to heaven, because there aren't any more, because Chuck Norris is out there.
Okay then, have a look at this.
Hi Dad, what are you doing?
Just warming up.
Oh, I see that. All right, you have fun.
Sure will.
Very funny. And some of the movies he made were absolutely terrific as well, especially Missing in Action is one of my favourites. Right, now, before we speak to Tony Thompson about this case of a big miscarriage of justice involving somebody called Clive Freeman, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Ed Hughes. The escalating conflict between the US, Israel and Iran dominates the headlines. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has told Parliament this is not our war, and Britain will not be dragged into it, while chairing a Cobra meeting on the potential impact on living costs and energy prices. The UK government says it supports defensive action, but insists there is no direct threat to Britain, despite reports of incidents near the Diego Garcia base. In London, counter-terror police are investigating a suspected anti-Semitic arson attack in which 4 ambulances belonging to the Jewish volunteer charity Hatzolah were set on fire in Golders Green. Prime Minister Starmer has described it as horrific, and the community has raised over £1 million in emergency funds. Other stories: concerns are growing over the economic fallout from the Middle East crisis, with unemployment already at a 5-year high, and ministers are facing questions about cybersecurity preparations amid heightened tensions. That's the main news from the UK this morning. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
I still think that picture's terrible, but there we are. They love using it because they know I don't like it. I'm going to start off on Starmer once again. Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of this country, right? Because I think we saw yesterday what we all suspected to be the case, which is, one, he's on the edge, he's under pressure, he's very thin-skinned, he knows he's doing a terrible job as Prime Minister, and he knows that his time is pretty much up, because we know coming on May the 7th is a big disaster for Labour, a big disaster for his party, a big disaster for his government. The local elections are probably going to end up with Labour losing possibly more than 1,000 seats. They're probably going to get ripped apart by Reform and a combination of that and the Greens. The Tories are probably not going to fare much better either. But just have a look at this, right, as an explanation of what is wrong with Keir Starmer. He's supposed to be a KC. He's supposed to have been trained as a lawyer. He's supposed to have been trained as a barrister. Now, the barristers that I know, and I've said this many times, are very, very good at answering questions. They're very good at asking questions. They're also really good and very nimble on their feet when it comes to talking in public. Keir Starmer is none of those things, right? And it's been told to me that one of the reasons why he wasn't really a very active and good barrister in a courtroom was that he was more of an administrator. He was more of an official. He ran the Crown Prosecution Service, but he didn't really actually practice law. And you can see that when he's asked at a select committee hearing yesterday to explain how it's possible that government policy, particularly when it comes to foreign policy and defence policy in the Middle East, continues to change almost by the day. Have a look at this.
The things to do at the beginning.
And I just wanted to pick up on a point in response to Mr. Slaughter. You were talking about the legal basis for action in Iran, and you were very clear in the original position. On Friday, though, you gave permission for the US to use the UK bases to target Iranian forces that are in effect keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed. Can you just be clear which states under international law are being defended through that action? Is it as clear a legal position as you were outlining?
Well, it's predominantly our allies in the region, and the legal basis is the same.
Which particular states?
Well,
name some.
All of those in the region that we are not just allowing US bases to be used to defend, of our bases to be used, but also we've got our own capability and assets in the sky there. But the legal, I mean, if you step back from this, we had already said, for the purposes of the defence, collective self-defence of our allies, and in fact our people who are in the region, we will allow...
I think we're very clear about that
Just to explain the legal bit, we will allow the US to strike Iran's capability to send missiles essentially to land, to infrastructure, hotels, bases. What Friday did was to extend that to vessels in the region, and because the illogicality of strikes that hit hotels and then you've got vessels in the water nearby that needed to be protected under the same legal framework, exactly the same legal framework. So actually that was an extension of the original decision as the targets of Iran have changed. So the set of targets that we've authorised the basis to be used for has changed accordingly, but the legal basis is precisely the same as the original legal basis, and the logic actually is precisely the same as well.
I mean, if you can understand what he means by any of that, you're a better man than I am, or woman, come to that, or non-binary individual. Because he clearly can't elaborate, he can't explain, he can't actually imagine what being in charge of a country when it's at war is. And all he can do is kind of come out with these legal platitudes about this is the law and the concept of the law is the same. No, it isn't. And I'm afraid that really, really does highlight his inability to do the job that he's supposed to be doing. And he's not fit for purpose and he needs to go. And if he doesn't go on May the 7th, he should go before May the 7th. And here's one more example just before we leave you. And this is how thin-skinned he is. Watch how quickly he loses his temper when Bernard Jenkins asks him a perfectly normal question, a perfectly straightforward question, about why the British military was not ready for this particular conflict.
The chiefs of staff are saying we need to be ready for war. So when are we going to be prepared, and prepared for what?
We are finalising the investment plan. That sits with the Strategic Defence Review.
It smacks of an enormous complacency.
Well, this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government and the stripping out and following out of our armed forces.
We've had 18 months
Copyright
to deal
Ben
with that.
Wallace, who was the defence
I'm not
secretary.
making a party political point.
Well, honestly,
I agree with Ben
14
Wallace.
years of underinvestment,
I agree with
18
Ben
months for
Wallace.
Labour government.
But take
We're
drones, for
picking-
example.
We're picking
The whole-
up the underinvestment of your government.
I mean, just pathetic, really. He should just go now. I mean, there is no point in Keir Starmer. He doesn't have a chief of staff. He doesn't have a chief of communications. He can't handle the job. He doesn't know which end is up. He doesn't talk to Donald Trump anymore. He doesn't get invited into the loop with the international countries that he thinks he represents. He's just a busted flush, and it's time for him to go. So, Keir Starmer, here's my message to you today. Just get lost. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to talk now to Tony Thompson, former British Transport Police Superintendent, 32 years service across major rail disasters, later the government's Regional Resilience Director of the South West and head of the UK Emergency Response for the British Red Cross. Tony, welcome to the show. Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Mike. Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
in. I don't know this story, and I've been in the journalism game for quite a long time, and I'm quite shocked that I don't know the story. So Clive Freeman is a man who's been in prison for 37 years for a conviction for arson and murder in 1989. Tell us the story.
Yes, in fact, he was arrested on the 2nd of June 1988 in Australia. He'd left the country, and he's been in detention ever since. So in 2 months' time, it'll be 38 years. Right. And that was 6 months before I was in charge at the scene of the Clapham train crash in '88, so a long time ago. He was described in the media at the time as it was one of the trial was one of the most extraordinary murder cases ever to appear before the Old Bailey. And the prosecution alleged that he had lured an unemployed homeless man off the streets of London, taken to him a flat in East London, in Rotherhithe, murdered him, set fire to the body with a view that the body would be his body double, so that he could claim on an insurance policy.
Okay.
And that was the basis of the allegation.
Okay. And did he ever do that? Did he ever claim to be dead? Well, did he ever claim that he was dead, if you like?
No, not at all. No, this plan that the prosecution alleged was completely ridiculous. And if the police had done their job properly and investigated it properly, they would have seen that there was no evidence to even charge him, in my view.
Right. Okay. So what actually did happen, or what does he say actually did happen?
Well, he'd come across from Rhodesia, where he'd had a business over there, and was trying, because of the problems after the Bush Wars, and he was a soldier in the Rhodesian army, and he was trying to. He ran a large farm with about 600 employees. The economy at the time in former Rhodesia was in Zimbabwe was not good, and he decided to move his family somewhere safe, and he was looking at either the States or Australia. So he'd planned all this, and there's evidence to show that he'd planned. He was going to stay with a friend of his who used to work for him back in Zimbabwe, in Australia, which was where he was arrested on the 2nd of June 1988. The trial was in 1989. And he's been in custody as safe for virtually 40 years.
And so what linked him then to the arson and the murder?
He was staying. It was a friend's flat in Rotherhithe, and he was staying there. A friend of the family put him up while he was trying. He was basically transiting the UK to try and get a new British passport so that he could go over to the States. He was going to renew a passport, and he was trying to improve his insurance policy because the work he was doing is crossing borders in Africa, so he's in quite dangerous areas. And he had a trucking business, so he was driving. And his wife at the time, who sadly died in 1999, said to him, "You need to change your insurance policy from payment in the local currency, which had bottomed out, which is worthless, and get it payable in dollars or pounds." So that's what he did over here. Right. So it's a perfectly logical explanation. Unfortunately, he never ever gave his side of the story. He remained silent. He was advised by his lawyers. Don't say anything. This was in Australia. So his side of the story was never, ever put forward. And when he came up for trial at the Old Bailey, the only things he said were not guilty twice, not guilty to murder and not guilty to arson.
So he never took the stand?
He never took the stand. So the jury heard nothing about his side of the story at all. So it was a tsunami of prosecution evidence.
And so would you say that was as a result of the defence being in some way interfered with by the prosecution? I mean, why would a defence lawyer say to somebody like him, if he was innocent, don't tell what happened, don't tell your side of the story?
Well, there's a backstory to this which I can't reveal until he comes out of prison, which involves some political issues and issues back in Africa. Okay. So because of that, his solicitor at the time, or his barrister, said, if you get asked about this, you're going to have to answer it. And he decided he did that he wasn't going to do it. I mean, the prosecution portrayed him as a trained killer. Well, he was a mounted scout. He was a surveillance team, but because of issues,
they were worried about questions that he might have to answer.
Exactly. Yes.
Should they be put to him, which would sway the jury into
But
thinking he was a murderer.
When he was questioned by the police, the Met Police went out to interview him several times in Australia before he came. He was brought back to the UK.
Was he extradited back?
He was. Well, Clive says he wasn't extradited. He said, "I want to come back and clear this up."
Okay.
It's not. I think they started extradition proceeding, but he came back, and his solicitor said, "Don't say anything until you know what the evidence is against you." And the evidence against him was never, ever explained to him, because as soon as he came back to Heathrow, he was arrested, taken to Southwark and charged.
Right. And so are you able to say what he thinks happened to the man who died?
Well, the police and the defence say that he and Clive Freeman, and the man that died, had never ever met, but that clearly isn't true. And there's evidence that the police knew that they'd met each other, and the defence knew they'd met each other in a bar at Victoria Station. Right. Clive was very into racing. He did a lot of horse racing. He was a trainer. He was a jockey when he was younger, and he still does. He still follows the racing world now. And when I see him, I take him in a racing paper, particularly with Cheltenham recently. Yes. He'd had some winnings, and he went into this bar at Victoria where the chap that died and somebody else saw him, got talking to him, bought a few beers. The man was the worst for drink, the other man, and fell off a stool, I think Clive said, and bumped his head. Anyway, Clive was getting ready to go and leave the country a couple of days' time, so he wanted to go back to Rotherhithe. And this guy lived in Brixton at the time, so this guy's friend helped him. They helped him outside, put him in a taxi at Victoria Station with a view to sending him home. But this guy was almost speechless, couldn't explain. The taxi drivers wouldn't take him, and Clive, being, he said, the good Samaritan, said, "Well, look, we can't just leave a bloke here. Back home, we would take him home." So he took him back to Rotherhithe with his mate, where they had some more drink, and eventually got rid of him. Now, Clive said when he was there, this chap, Clive, had some money which he was getting ready to take away. He got rid of him out of the flat, and Clive thinks he came back. And he said the old Yale latch on the door, you could push the front door open and get in easily. But so they did actually meet, but Clive didn't know him before. Right. And when he found out there'd been a fire in the flat, he was then on his way to the States.
Oh, so he wasn't. So he'd left the flat.
He'd left the flat. Yes. Right. So what happened on the night of the alleged murder? Clive and the prosecution and the defence both accepted. He checked into a hotel in Earl's Court at 10:30 at night, very much the worse for drink. This is Clive Freeman.
The same day.
The same. Well, the same. No, this is the day after.
Okay.
That he'd been sorting out his affairs because he was leaving and not coming back.
Right.
So Clive went to he went to a nightclub that no longer exists near Earl's Court Tube and wanted to say cheerio because his daughter was staying over here at the same time in a different place. So he went to see her when he thought it was in a nightclub. The nightclub bouncer wouldn't let him in because he said he was too drunk and said, you need to go and sleep it off over the way. Yeah. And so he toddled off there, checked in, and we know he checked in at 10:30 at night. And all the records show he checked out at 8 o'clock the next morning, made his way, picked up his ticket, and then flew out of the country. Now, there's no forensic evidence, there's no evidence whatsoever to show that he, in this drunken state, got out of this hotel, somehow made his way back to Rotherhithe, got back into the flat, killed this bloke, set fire to the flat, then made his way all the way back to the hotel, checked in without being seen. Now, there's no evidence at all. Right. And there's no evidence, apart from, obviously, fingerprints where he'd been staying for a few months, to link him with the crime. So what
does he think happened then?
He doesn't know. I mean, he doesn't know. This chap clearly got back into the flat where he was found. He thinks he may have been looking for, having seen Clive sorting out some money when he was there. He thinks this chap had gone back. This man had previous convictions for dishonesty, and he thinks he must have broken in or tried to get back in. He had no idea that Clive was leaving, so he thinks that he must have gone in, tried to get in there, and got in there. We don't know, but there's no forensic evidence. But there clearly was a fire.
So there was a fire.
But there was a fire.
Was killed in the fire, or?
No, there was this is where we get onto the pathology, which it becomes a bit more complicated. The pathologist carried out 4 post-mortem examinations on this guy that had sadly died. And there was clear evidence this man had consumed an awful lot of alcohol. There was he'd also been taking medicinal drugs, and his health was not very good. And the prosecution guy couldn't find any evidence that he died naturally. And then he came up with this idea that this man had died from an offence of Birkin, going back to the old Burke and Hare case in Scotland in 1828, because he thought he'd found some bruises on the back of his body. So there's no forensic evidence about that. But after the 3rd post-mortem, the police clearly hadn't found a cause of death, and there's evidence that the police had emailed the pathologist to say we need to get a positive on this to the pathologist. So there's a bit of influence being exerted there.
Yes.
But the defence at trial pulled in a leading forensic pathologist of many years standing, who said there's no evidence that this man was killed by a deliberate act. This man died of a combination, an injudicious combination of alcohol and medicinal drugs, plus whatever his health condition was. Now,
so he wasn't burned to death?
He wasn't burned to death. No.
He was asphyxiated by the smoke?
No, there was the only evidence we've got is what the pathologist found and he clearly did a very poor job on it and was roundly criticised over the years. But the body had been moved, although they thought it was a suspicious death. They moved the body out of the scene, which is where you would normally expect the examination, the pathologist to look at the scene and get an assessment. He was moved by the police. He ended up at Westminster Mortuary, and then they took some weeks to try and establish how this man had died. Now, the defence pathologist was appointed and got the file papers about 3 or 4 days before the trial started. No photographs, just a report. So that's all his assessment he was able to make. But he said, on what I've read, that the post-mortem pathologist has written in his pretty shabby report, suggests that this man died as a combination of medicinal drugs and excessive alcohol. But because when it came to trial the following year, in 1989, all the jury heard was prosecution evidence. Defence evidence about, no, this man didn't die. Prosecution evidence to say this man died from Birkin. So after about an hour and 20 minutes, the jury went out and found him guilty because they'd heard no other side.
No counter-argument.
Now,
so how did you get involved with this case?
Well, perhaps if I can just, before I can say that, what happened over the years, long before I got involved, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation, life for murder, with a recommendation of 13 years, the tariff before he can be considered for release. That was increased by the Home Secretary at the day to 15 years, and he got 5 for the arson as well. So he got murder and arson. The two were clearly linked, according to the prosecution. So over the years, we've now got about 10 different forensic pathologists to say that the post-mortem that was carried out by the pathologist at the time was hugely flawed, and that the pathologist's findings that this guy died deliberately was complete nonsense. And going back to Clive's application to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, which had just been set up in the late 90s, his first application was put in 2000. I put in the 6th application in 2023 to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, and finally managed to get it over the line.
Okay.
But if I can just explain how I got involved, I'm a member of the Veterans Advisory and Pensions Committee, well, my veterans badge on here, which is an unpaid volunteer appointment by the Ministry of Defence to support and help veterans and their families. And I have a particular interest in crime and the criminal justice system. So I started going to one of our local prisons just outside Bristol to meet veterans, where there's typically about 50 armed forces veterans in there, to provide sort of help and support on various matters. So I went there, I think it was on the first or second time about 3 years ago, and I was just finishing this meeting with the veterans, and Clive came along with another chap, and the guy said, "Oh, can you have a word with Clive Freeman? He could do with your help." And so I said to Clive, what's the issue? And he said, "Oh, I've been wrongly convicted." I said, "Well, what of?" And he said, "Well, murder, and I've been in prison for 35 years wrongly." So we had to leave then, because I said, "Look, I'll come back. These are my details. I'll come back when the next one I'll have a chat with you." And about 2 weeks later, I got a call from a guy called Terry Wilcock, who I thought was a lawyer, and he said, "Oh, you said you could help Clive." So I said, "Yeah." I don't know anything about the case, and I said, "Are you a solicitor?" And he said, "No, I used to be in prison with him, but I've been out 10 or 12 years, and he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's innocent. He didn't commit the crime. Can you help him?" So that's really where it started.
Okay.
So I started going back, and then 3 years later, having done a complete review of the case and taking the file away from a lawyer who wasn't doing particularly much on it, battling with the CCRC, on the 11th of August last year, I managed to get, at the 6th attempt, a referral to the Court of Appeal.
Right. So when are they going to look at it?
Well, we had a directions hearing on the 10th of March, a couple of weeks ago, and there's some various directions given by the courts, various bits of evidence that are needed, but sadly we're not going to be able to get it in this side of summer, so it's going to be next, probably in October onwards. So I told Clive the next day. He's obviously not very happy about it, but it's taking quite a long time. But there are two miscarriages of justice going on here. I'll make the point. One is the wrong conviction, which is clear. The second thing is, this guy should have been released over 20 years ago. His tariff expired in 2003. So for the last 22 and a half years, he's had an exemplary conduct in the prison. He's been in open conditions for over 14 years in the prison I go to. And doesn't pass the test to release test, because
And what is that pass? Because they release lots of people who they shouldn't release.
Yes,
all the time.
Exactly.
They're consistently releasing people like that guy Pitchfork, for example. Who's been released, and the first thing he did was to go back, and he was convicted of murdering 2 teenage girls, and brutally raping them. He gets released and he goes straight to a school and starts hanging around outside the gates and take him back in again. So how has he not been released?
Well, that's the big question. And unfortunately, I'm battling with the MOJ, the Ministry of Justice. I'm battling with the prison service, and I'm battling with the parole board, who now won't talk to me about it because they...
Shocking.
Clive is nearly 83. He's got advanced prostate cancer. He's got mobility issues. He hobbles around, and he's an old man. He's got a big white beard. and a very vulnerable individual. Now, I looked at his parole board dossier, which has grown to about 250 pages over the years, and I said, there's stuff in here that's incorrectly written down. And in February, I got the prison governor to admit that they'd incorrectly recorded information about him. For example, this is just one example, the trial judge said the death of the man, and I'm saying it wasn't a murder at all, but at the trial judge said death was not a violent process, it was suffocation, although there's no evidence about that. Yeah. And yet, in his parole board dossier, when I'm going through it, they ticked the box to say that the index offence, the murder, had been committed using violent, excessive or sadistic violence. I said, that's not right, and there are other things wrong with it. So they're correcting it. So I put in an application to the Ministry of Justice, their release team, on the 21st of December, and they were supposed to give you a reply within 2 weeks. Here we are, 3 months on, and I'm still battling. I wrote the letter to Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, in 2024, saying this man should be released pending the CCRC considering the case. Of course, you don't get a reply from that. Of course not. You go, you get an official writing some stupid letter about policy, and then I wrote again last week, and I'm still waiting. The Ministry of Justice know there's something wrong. They realise that, but they won't talk to me. This man should be released on humanitarian grounds. I've spun the application into contravening Article 3 of the Human Rights Act because he is in a state of hopelessness. He has got, I should say, he doesn't want to come out. He's saying, if you get me out on compassionate grounds, they're going to push my case further down the line. They're going to kick it down the long grass. He said, they want me dead. They want me out. But he's strong enough to see this out.
Well, it's an extraordinary story. Thank you for telling us all about it, because we're unfortunately at the end of the show. So Tony Thompson, that's the man you're listening to sitting here, has been working tirelessly to try and get this sorted out, and we'll keep watching it. Clive Freeman spent 37 years in prison, and he should never have been there more than 20, it would seem to me. It seems an extraordinary case. Anyway, listen, we'll follow it up. Do keep us in touch.
Thank you, Mike.
Tony,
yes, we'll do.
If you don't mind with how it all goes. It's been another fascinating show. However, have we got time to do Pooch's Pooch before we go? This will cheer people up at the end. We always do a nice little video of a dog. Check it out.
So I'm dog sitting, and the dog that I take care of needs to hold my hand when we go downstairs. So, come on.
No.
Okay, come on. You want to go? Okay, come on.
That's lovely.
Oh, I know. Okay. Okay, come on. You're going to take me all the way to the couch? No, you're going to walk me all the way? Okay.
That's great.
Where do you want to go? Huh? Where do you want me to take you? Oh, you're taking me to your bed. Okay. Oh, that's a good boy. That's a very good boy. That's a good boy. Yeah. That's a good boy. This is lovely.
That's lovely, isn't it? Dogs. Amazing. What creatures. We'll have more Pooches for you tomorrow. We'll have more from Pooch tomorrow as well. So thank you to him. Thank you to Charlotte for setting everything up. Thank you to Tony once again. Thank you to all the guests that were on today. Lord Daniel Moynan, Will Geddes, of course, as well. Russell Quirk, Mark Littlewood, Donald McLeod and Norman Fenton, trying to sort out their problem with the Twitter accounts and all the rest of it. We'll be back, meanwhile, tomorrow from 7 a.m. Sorry?
One last comment on screen.
Oh, one last comment on screen, yeah. Chuck Norris used to sleep with the nightlight on, not because he's afraid of the dark, but because the dark is afraid of Chuck Norris. That's from Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Thanks to all of you for all your great messages as well. Do like and subscribe to the YouTube account. And if you want to go and join the Substack, you can go and do that as well. That's the MikeGrahamShow.com. We'll see you tomorrow.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.